Yeah. It's actually Mary's back.
Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, February 11th. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Sure, if you would lead us.
Everybody's in the room.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You could remain standing. Please be advised that Governor Deval Patrick has ordered that the United States flag and the Commonwealth flag be lowered to half-staff at all state buildings from sunrise until sunset on Tuesday, February 12th, 2013, in honor of Private First Class Michael A. Gorman of Brookline, who died on February 5th. We have a moment of silence for him, please. Okay, thank you. All right, tonight's agenda. We'll start with the Maya Health Benefits Trust Best Progress in Wellness Award presentation, and we'll have the Reed Mail. 7:10 we'll have public input. At 7:15 we have the emergency management update. At 7:25 town clerk annual town election calendar. At 7:30 we'll have a public hearing for a package store license transfer. 7:45 we have Sam Park with an update on the point. 8 o'clock we have the Littleton Common Sewer Feasibility Study Committee update. 8:30 we've got the fiscal year 2014 budget update, the operating budget and capital improvements plan. 8:45 town administrator, assistant town administrator for finance and budget, open warrants for May 6th, 2013 special and annual town meetings. Management employee contracts and staffing vacancy reviews for the police department and fire department. 9 o'clock, we've got other business consent agenda, Rotary Club shelter box on the common. Chapter 61B, right of first refusal for 7 Sarah Indian Way. And then we have the 15 Great Road post-community agreement and minutes approved. Okay, let's start with the Maya Health Benefits Trust. 1B.
I'd like to invite up here Ann Ledlow from the Maya Health Benefits Trust, and we also have some members of our Town of Littleton Wellness team who we would like to have recognized. I'm going to try not to steal too much of the thunder, but I did want to say that we're pleased that through the work of our wellness team that the Mass Interlocal Insurance Association's Health Benefits Trust has awarded Littleton with its 2012 award for Best Progress in Wellness. And we're going to remind Maya of that when our renewal rates come up within the next 3 weeks. And that's sort of where the rubber hits the road. But we want to welcome Ann to Littleton.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to come tonight. Keith mentioned the wellness team, and that's really what it's all about. You have a very good, active team, which we appreciate a great deal. Ann provides good leadership. There's great support from management for the program. There's wide participation throughout the departments in the town. There are times when we see the school side of the town actively participating in a wellness program, but not the employees in the town hall or the other way around. You've got good town-wide participation. You develop programs on the basis of an interest survey that you use to find out what programs your employees would participate in and would be interested in participating in, and you've had a very good high-level participation in an array of programs. You've had, I think, weight loss and insomnia, men's health, and now you have a cardiac risk reduction program ongoing that I understand you have 25 people or so enrolled in. That's terrific. We find...
We have room for 5 more.
We find over and over again that there's nothing that drives up your healthcare costs more than heart disease. And there's so many things that you can do to mitigate that. And you done a lot of them already, and I'm sure that you'll be doing more. So your program offerings are a very nice menu, and we're grateful to see the numbers that you have coming out. We hope we're helping you to get some good results. So I'd like to congratulate the committee and to present this plaque to you and say thank you very much for the efforts that you have made. And we look forward to working with you as you keep the program going.
Thank you. And I just wanted to name the members of the wellness team, most of whom are here tonight: Ann Essman, Debbie Richards, Steele McCurdy, Kimberly Donlin, Chris Adley, Diane Haddich, and Pam Campbell. So thank you for all of the work that you're doing, which is going to pay off big time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We have a motion on the floor here. Do we need to make that motion, Keith?
We can enter that in the record.
Yeah, I'd like to do that. If we could.
Yeah. Our minutes will say. Mail, just a couple of items. We have a notice that tomorrow night, February 12th at 7 o'clock at Littleton High School, the See a New Sun, that is the SANS Foundation, will be launching its mental health resource and referral service. You recall back in November, we agreed to accept a donation of funds from the See a New Sun Foundation. We're happy that that is getting launched. Also, we have an invitation for the launch of the MAGIC, that is the Minuteman Advisory Group on Interlocal Coordination, Agricultural Forum, which will be held on Tuesday, March 5th from 6 to 9 p.m. in Sudbury. So that is a formal launch of that.
Are you planning to attend that?
Yes.
Good. All right, well, let's move on to public input. What members' public input?
Mr. Chairman, just quickly, dealing with the host community agreement that we have, and due to what happened last week, I have this an idea that would open something up. After talking to Keith early in the week, there is no statutory or regulatory requirement that we make anything public. We didn't, but we did on 4 different occasions. We actually talked about it. But what I would offer, because it's not statutory or regulatory type of thing, we still can take input, which I didn't think we could. So when it comes time for that agreement to come up, my suggestion would be to take the final comments or final ideas that people may have, and that's not scheduled till 9 o'clock, but it's an idea that this board can take on or not take on.
Okay. Any thoughts with that, board members?
I think it's a great idea.
I think we just take one more comment from, people have their just one last shot or something like that, yeah.
Okay. All right, good. Anyone else, board members?
I have a couple things. I just want to say that I went out with the plow crews for the first time. I know a couple of selectmen here drive plows, but I've never been out on the roads, and it was pretty interesting to go out and ride the big truck and see what it takes. You think, we got 62 miles of road, you got 31 trucks, boom, you're done. The route's a couple miles, you easily keep up with it. But when you start thinking about some of the roads, we had to go down 4 passes, and then you got to stop and clear back, push back. So it was really interesting. I went out with Jim in one of the big trucks, and then I went out with Dan, the general foreman, and it was very good because when I was out with Dan, I got to see a medical called in, or hear a medical called in, and just Dan says, okay, he heard the street, and he said, yep, the guy was just on it. I said, well, let's go take a look. So we went over there. Sure enough, the street was cleared. Police and fire were already there, and it was just interesting to see. And I thought they did a good job. There were some long shifts out there, and I think the plowing. I also want to mention, I think it's a great community effort because you go down to the yard or down to the office, and they have like all the wives and girlfriends or friends or whatever give them food to bring in. So they had a pretty good, pretty good spread there. It wasn't anything like home, it wasn't like being at home with your kids, but it was pretty good. So it was interesting. And just one last thing I want to mention is Springdale Farm is having their community-supported agriculture again this year, so you can buy shares to that. They're due on February 15th, so if you want to support community agriculture and local farms, I think that's one of the best ways to do it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anything else? Okay. Public? Public input? Name and record, name and address for the record.
Thank you. Vera Cohen, Newtown Road. I do want to go back to the public hearing that happened last Monday. It was very difficult to watch. I think that many people who came here waited patiently while the selectmen queried the town councils, and the selectmen queried Omni, and Omni gave a presentation. And there were a few other things that happened, letters that were finally read, and a few hands were taken. And then the hearing was closed very abruptly. I was sorry to see that, because many of the people who came here had difficulty getting here. As you know, there was a disabled gentleman and his wife. There were many people who had waited for a long time to say what they needed to say, and it wasn't necessarily that they were going to say the same things, but if they were, we have often heard the same things while we're listening here. And there are many unanswered questions. This is a very large project on Main Court, very big for this town of Littleton. It's going to be with us for a long time if it happens, and the community host agreement is a large issue. So I was hoping that the meeting would be open to the public next week, when people could come who were here last week, because there were only a very small number of people who came. They thought they could not be heard. So maybe you can do it next week, I don't know. I appreciate what you can do, and I do hope that we don't have that kind of public hearing again. Thank you.
Thanks, Vera. Jerry?
Jared Opioid, New State Road. First of all, I'd like to echo Mr. Doucette's commendation of the highway department. I mean, it says a lot when you see the highway super out on Sunday with the sidewalk plow clearing the streets. I mean, it shows the whole department kicks in from top management on down. Second question, do you guys have to formally lift the state of emergency?
Enacted. Keith, I refer to you.
Yeah, we can do that as the next item. We're having an update on the emergency management.
And the third thing, I'd like to echo Vera's concern about bringing the host community agreement out at a later date, because one thing that kind of came up last week but never really got addressed was a question of zoning, and that is, are sewage treatment plants or wastewater treatment plants allowed in a residential district? And I think that's kind of a gray area that the planning board wanted to address, and that kind of got lost in the events that happened later on in the meeting. And I, for one, would like to see that addressed, because that's kind of key to this whole issue of the tie-ins and some of the other things that seem to be the real sticking point of the HCA.
We're going to be talking about it at 9 o'clock, so I think we're all in agreement here that we'll take a few more comments from the audience. Any other public input? Okay, let's go to the emergency management update. Saw a lot of communications this weekend. It was all good.
They're still going on.
That means you had your power, you had the internet.
I did. I had power.
For the most part, everything went very well. They declared the state of emergency and banned the hard vehicles from the roads. That was a huge help. Highway department was able to keep up with it. They did a pretty good job of keeping up with it for most of the night, except for right in the middle, which is very difficult. All whiteout conditions, but I think for the most part everything went very smoothly. Fire-wise, there was a quiet night. Had a few medicals the next morning throughout the day. I don't think there was anything significant as far as the PD went either.
Just another day at work.
Yep. But, other than that, I know the South Shore is they're still dealing with quite a mess down there, and they'll still be in a state of emergency for a couple more days. Still trying to get back to and everything down that way. I think the only thing that would be delayed in town that would affect us might be the commuter rail, which they're still anticipating some delays through tomorrow. Other than than that, everything is in great shape. I don't see why, any reason why we couldn't lift our state of emergency for Littleton.
Any learnings from what took place? And was there anything, best practices that came out of this?
Not that we could replicate it, but I think having the vehicles off the roads was huge. You know, there was nobody commuting through the rush hour, or literally no vehicles on the roads other than plows all night long. And you know, that's great for the highway department to not have to deal with that, but I don't think we'll be able to replicate that anytime soon.
Let it to the governor, I
Are we
guess.
getting closer with the backup generator for the middle school?
Last I knew, that was actually last week and this week, they have the computer monitoring stuff on the panels themselves, just evaluating and all of the usage. And I think that should be coming back next week.
How's the new ambulance? Is that online yet?
New ambulance is online. Radios are all installed. That is operating very smoothly. And we got an update today, actually, as far as the backup ambulance. Ford Commercial has agreed to give the harness as well as eat half the cost, and Jarvis is going to eat a good chunk of it as well. And we've gone from a $10,000 repair to $1,500. That'll be going in next Monday to be fixed.
So how long will that take to?
They said at least a week.
Wow.
So they said it's a significant job to replace the line.
Do you think that'll solve the problem?
I hope so.
Didn't they say that before?
No guarantees. We'll see.
Spray the wires?
Well, you said this was something that happens with this vehicle, this
It is.
model.
This model, the 0607 model, it is one of the knowns
Yeah.
that they just did not issue a recall on.
Yeah.
So it is, they're anticipating this being the big care
Good.
of our issues.
Good job with that, you know, taking a $10,000 repair and bringing it down to $1,500. I guess that's good negotiation.
Keep trying.
Because they work there. So we need to entertain a motion to
Lift the state of
the state of
emergency.
emergency.
Second?
Second, moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
It's over.
It's over. Thank you.
Russian model.
There you go.
It still exists statewide.
We're good here.
Just be thankful you're not in Situate. No,
Okay, moving along here. Doing a nice job with our schedule. Town clerk, annual election calendar.
Well, as you all know, we have a special primary and a special state election that's coming up. And based on the information that the clerks have been given, there has been a move to allow towns and cities to enable us to move our annual town meeting or town election to the same day as either the primary or the state election. It has to be within 30 days, so the only one that we would be able to piggyback on would be the April 30th. Which means if we piggyback on the April 30th, that means the election and everything is moved up. Michelle Tassinari advised many towns that if you are actually moving it up, it's a tougher request because you're shortening all of the abilities of candidates to be able to get their nomination papers done, to get them back in time, to get the registrars the ability to get everything certified. My feeling is that I think we leave it alone. I think that our May election is on a Saturday, and one of the reasons that we moved our election to a Saturday was it followed our town meeting. And if we move up our election to before the town meeting, many times people are removed from office and they have no idea of the goings-on of the last year. And so that's one of the reasons why we actually moved it to after the town meeting. So the other thing, I know people are probably thinking, well, how much are we going to be saving and all of that. The monies we're going to be saving is about between $400 and $500 from the town clerk side, because we still have to pay for everything. The state picks up, the only thing the state picks up is the memory cards, but it's only their part of the memory card.
We still have to pay.
So we still have to pay for ours. We have to pay for all of our printing because it's considered a dual election, which means that there's 2 separate ballots, which means that I have to come up with, instead of 12 volunteers, I have to come up with 24 volunteers. Because you have to have 2 separate check-ins, 2 separate sets of paperwork, and 2 sets of ballots. The other issue is also that the Board of Selectmen tonight would have to make a decision as to whether they would like to move it. If they so choose to do that, they would also have to make a decision as to whether or not we move our election, our town election, from 8 o'clock start to a 7 o'clock start, which is what the state is. You don't have to. It's advised if you're going to change it, you might as well change it at the same time. That way, there's no confusion with somebody who's coming in to vote just locally at 7 o'clock, and you tell them they can't vote till 8. So those are a couple of the, items that I'm here for tonight.
Board members, any thoughts?
When would the warrant have to close?
Oh, yeah, this is just for the election.
Election.
Yeah,
Election
not the
only.
town
Yeah.
meeting,
Not the
but
town meeting.
it would, but the timetable would move up by 11
11
days.
days.
So if we're looking at, is it mid-March or something for
Right.
polling papers?
Yeah.
We move it up by 11 days, and then the election occurs sooner. I mean, it's all about that, in our case, that there would be 2 elections
Yep.
in successive weeks. Tuesday,
Tuesday the
April
30th. Yep.
and the following
Saturday.
Saturday, the 11th.
May 11th. State law allows you to collapse 2 into 1, but it falls within 30 days. But if you move it ahead, as Diane said, it means you've got a shorter election cycle for the local election.
And I think what you said is not, you don't combine 2 into 1, you just put 2 on the same date.
That's
What-
correct.
So it's 2 elections on the same date, but it's, like you said, it's not a combined ballot, so it's
That's
still
correct.
kind of going in, voting, coming back out.
Well, you actually, what you do, there's 2 different setups. So you go from whichever you choose to vote, or if you choose to vote both. You could check in at the state side, then go over to the town side, and you can take those
Right.
both ballots and go in and vote. And the way that the memory cards are, it's time released, and it's supposed to work. The city clerk in Concord has done 4 in the past 20 years that she's been the town clerk, and she said the first couple were pretty tough. You have to really get people that are trained, because it's a primary, so not only are you looking at a state election that has just 1 ballot, it could be 4 or 5 different ballots, so.
When I first heard it, I thought, it's crazy not to, but I think based on what we heard tonight, it seems sensible to
I was thinking
leave
the
them
same.
separate.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I don't want to run the risk of any more recounts. But,
Yeah, that's it.
it's a lot of work. All right, that makes sense to me. Any other thoughts on this side? All right, I'll look for a motion then.
Move that the Board of Selectmen, in consultation with the town clerk, vote its intent to, not to move the annual town election from Saturday, May 11th, 2013.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thanks, Diane.
Thank you.
3 elections.
We've got a 7:30 public hearing. We've got about 6-7 minutes to kill here.
You can open the warrant.
Sam, you think you need more than 7 minutes?
Yeah.
No, might be more than that, questions.
I could talk very quickly.
No, I don't have.
No, you want more time?
I'm sorry.
All right.
Set dates for the town warrants.
Yeah, you can open the warrants 9A.
Yeah, about
That's easy.
the election. Can we either contact Steve Mark or Jim or whoever to try and find out, make sure we get the floors picked up in the middle school between, and they're not left down? I know at one point between a couple elections or something were left down, and there was a lot of complaints from parents that, I mean, it seems it's 14 days that they know they would have to pick them up, but the protective floors, I don't know if we have to contact Steve Mark or Jimmy, but see if it's possible, or see if they intend to pick up the floor in between the elections.
We've kept them, apprised of the schedule
Yeah.
for the discussion for
I
tonight.
mean, we've got a lot happening. on that Tuesday, the 30th, you've got an election, 30th of April, then you've got town meeting on the 6th, and maybe the 7th.
Oh,
That's right.
And then you've got, so it'll be, well, we'll coordinate with it.
yeah, I just try to do as much
Last
as I
time they
can.
took it out of commission for the board,
Although, you know what, that was also in the wintertime, so maybe they couldn't go outside, so maybe this is April, May, they'll be able to go outside, so we can just keep that in consideration. Thank you.
All right, well, let's look at the, setting the dates for opening and closing town meeting warrants.
This keeps with our practice of opening the warrant at the beginning of February, closing it 45 days prior to the date of town meeting. That gives us enough time under our new system to be able to produce and get the town meeting report with backup materials to the printer by, set a date of April 12th for getting that document to the printer so that we can get it in people's mailboxes by 2 weeks before town meeting.
Board members, questions, comments? I'll look for a motion.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to open the Monday, May 6, 2013 annual and special town meeting warrants forthwith, and to close them Friday, March 22nd, 2013 at noon.
Move second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
The minutes, I
Minutes, I was
wasn't
just
here.
gonna say, yeah, minutes.
I can't make the motion, I'll vote.
Yeah, I had a couple specific requests last time, and it was, Jen, nothing in fine, so. okay with those.
You wanna make a motion then?
Sure, I'll move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the minutes of Monday, January 28th, 2013.
Move seconded, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, guys. Guess we'll just wait for this public hearing in a couple of minutes.
For chapter 61B?
There you go.
Yeah, you could do that. I don't think anyone's coming for that. That's 10,
Way too much.
A2.
First time we've had 10.
Does this, the only question I had is, this lot doesn't butt up against the, what's the name of that forest up there? Sarah Doublet. Is this a butt up against it? Does anybody know? I mean, it's like a
is a
spaghetti
plan.
lot. But I can't determine whether it butts up against it or not.
I don't think so.
Yeah, here it is, right here, so. Right here. Looks like it's squeezed in between two other ones. This spot right here.
Yeah, it does. It doesn't look like it's close, but I think
But here's
the
a-
Sarah Doublet forest is over here.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's 0.184 acres for $530,000. I don't think that's enough. I'll move that the Board of Selectmen vote not to exercise the town's right of first refusal under Mass General Law, Chapter 61B, Section 9, to acquire the property at Sarah Indian Way totaling 0.184 acres for a bona fide offer of $530,000.
Second?
Is that accurate? 0.184 acres?
Isn't it?
Oh, that's a great price. Okay. Moving and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. I will, I'll open the public hearing. All right, 7:30. Board of Selectmen public hearing, all alcohol package store license application for transfer, Neshoba Package Store Incorporated, 224 Great Road, Littleton, to Littleton Liquors LLC, 320 Great Road, Littleton, Mass. Littleton Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing on Monday, February 11th, 2013, at 7:30 in the town offices, room 103, 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Mass. To act on the application under Mass General Law, Chapter 138, and Neshoba Package Store Incorporated. Michael Byrne, manager, for a transfer of the retail all alcohol package license to Littleton Liquors LLC. Dominic J. Seven, Jr., manager, doing business as Littleton Liquors, to be located at 320 Great Road, Littleton, Mass. The applicant is seeking a transfer of the license for the retail sale of all alcoholic beverages Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Sundays, 12 p.m. to 11 p.m., to the new owners. Comments thereon may be submitted in writing to the Selectmen Town Administrator's Office, 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Mass., by noon on Friday, February 8th, 2013, or in person at the hearing. Okay, did we receive anything in writing? Any comments?
We have staff comments, we did not receive public comments.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, Cheryl Gould, representing Neshoba Package Store, Inc. This is Dominic J. Seven, Jr., the manager of the new store. Littleton Liquors LLC is a newly created entity that seeks to purchase the package store license of Neshoba Package Store, Inc. They will no longer be at the Donlands location. They're proposing to move the location to 320 Great Road, as it's stated in your application. The only abutters to that are the owner himself of that property, myself as an abutter to the property, and within 500 feet would be the Baptist Church. It's exactly 497 feet. So notices have been given to the abutters by the certified mails, and the affidavit is attached here too. The green card that's missing is the green card that mail had to be forwarded to Florida, but that is the owner of the premises. And I know he got actual notice. He has confirmed that he got his notice.
so are you planning to open right away, or?
As soon as the ABCC grants permission, they'd like to open right away. Of course, we have some building permit renovations to accomplish, and we have to reassemble the coolers and other things, but as soon as they can get the store together, they'd like to open as soon as possible.
So familiarize the people in the room here with where 320 King Street.
320 Great Road is, it's the building that has the cleaner and the Noah's Ark consignment store in it. It sits in the parking lot across the street from my offices, which most people know, and the Home Advantage building, which is also sharing the parking lot. The current plan is to move the door, the entry door, so that it faces the parking lot and not the street, so that traffic will be encouraged to come into the parking lot and park, and then enter the package store from the main parking area and not from the street, not backing out onto Great Road as they have been doing in the past. There'll be a little reconfiguring going on, so when it takes some of the space from the consignment shop, not all of it, and then that middle unit that's been vacant for about 2 years.
Okay. So it won't be facing the street,
It'd be facing the interior parking lot, that's correct. It'll be run with the same quality as you require in this town. Chief Kelly has been kind enough to suggest the training that needs to happen. We put in a training policy. Your board approved BATS training for these package stores. That's the training offered by the Package Store Association of Massachusetts. Mr. Seven has signed up for that already. The other employee that we think we're going to have has signed up for it as well.
Keith, we haven't done a transfer like this in the past, have we? Are we able to do that?
Yes, you're under the statute that you're able to approve the sale of the license, that is the transfer of the license from one entity to another, and you're able to approve the location, or change in the location of the license from one location to another. What may be unusual is that you're doing both at the same time. But the statute allows for both of those. I reviewed this application with town council and did pose that question specifically, but it's appropriately before the board to do that, and you can. In looking over the draft motion, though, when it comes time to make a motion, I left some language off that you'll need to find also that the premises are not detrimental to the educational and spiritual activities of the church located within 500 feet. That's a finding that because there's church property within the 500 feet. That's an additional finding you have to make. We use that language when you approved the sub shop back in October, and when the time comes to make a motion, we'll incorporate that in this motion as well.
Just as an interesting side note, if you have a minute, the statute says churches within 500 feet. And so typically the assessor will draw a 500-foot radius around the property. The Massachusetts ABCC says 500 feet is measured building to building,
Yeah.
and not as we are used to measuring a 500-foot radius. So I did ask the assessor to remeasure through Google Maps because I couldn't believe that the Baptist church is within 500 feet of that site, but building to building was exactly 497 feet.
Feet enough. Well,
Comment?
yeah, board members, any
Well, I just
comments?
we didn't receive anything from them, right? They were notified.
They were notified, the green card is in there.
And
That's right, and the test is that they have to receive the notice, and it's up to them to come forward and state that there's an issue.
As you know, Common Convenience is directly across the street from them, and they had no objection when they applied for the beer and wine there as well.
Board members, any comments? Public, any comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to close the public hearing?
Okay. Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks for reminding me about that.
Yeah, I know,
I forgot all about that.
I'll let Ted do the other motion.
And what's, finding is not detrimental to the, I have operation interest of it, but is there
Yeah,
specific
finding
language?
that, at the very end, it's a finding that the premises are not detrimental to the educational and spiritual activities of the church located within 500 feet thereof.
Maybe. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 138, subsections 15 and 15A, to approve the transfer of a retail all alcohol package license from the Neshoba Package Store, Inc., Michael Byrne, manager, to Littleton Liquors, LLC, Dominic J. Seven Jr., manager, DBA Littleton Liquors, to be located at 320 Great Road, Littleton, Mass., for the retail sale of alcoholic beverages Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Sundays, 12 p.m. to 11 p.m., and further to find that the premises is not detrimental to the education and spiritual interest of the Baptist Church.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Good luck. Okay. Great, thank you. Sam, you're up. Great.
This is the moment we've all been
I
waiting
thought I was
for.
gonna try to squeeze you in.
Well, one, I'll share some of the actual site plans that we are getting ready to, we mark January 1st marks a kind of a moment in the development of the point, because it's where we start our real leasing activities at this point. Up till now, we've been involved in pre-leasing, testing the markets. We've been rather confident, as you can see, we've already initiated construction, if not completed most of the site work at this point. Let me give you an overall project update first. The roadway improvement, stewardship of the city, the consultants, Bonnie for keeping it all paid correctly, has gone very well.
Confused with your Walter.
Oh, yeah, but it's gone very well. As you know, the road improvements, most of the heavy construction has been completed on the road improvements. We are obviously waiting till the winter thaw to do the final surface treatments and what have you. But the curving, the box widenings, most of the heavy utility work has been installed. At this point, it's really the remaining surface overlays, the actual signal hardware, and of course, the long-awaited, some of the utility pole relocations, which ironically can be the most expensive and most time-consuming feature of any roadway project.
We seem to be the ones that are last done, too.
That's why. So that's going on. On the site side of the site, if you've driven by there, we've actually finished the first area. We have basically 3 levels of construction, and I'll share this. I'll bring it over here in case everyone wants to see it. Am I in the way? But basically, we have 3 steps, which we call P1, P2, P3, because the grades go up as we move forward towards the rear of the site. We've actually completed the paving and all the earthwork and utilities in this area here. All the underground work has been completed here, and we are still, this is phase 2, is still a earthwork zone, but we, to benefit some of our neighbors in Westford, we've actually tried to accelerate the work so that the amount of disruption to the neighborhood behind us was limited to last year. So a lot of that, we actually accelerated a lot of the heavy construction in that area. Come this spring, we'll be stabilizing the rear slopes, so all the construction activity will be moved down the hill really to where you might see the heavy boulders and earth piles. But essentially, this first pad here has been paved. The base paving went down just before the first frost in December. We're a little bit slower now, we're just installing some of the water main work, some of the electrical conduits, and so the power and what have you is coming into the site. So that's nearing completion, and really, if you go up there, this area should be paved the first week or two that asphalt plants are open. So our schedule is really have this area paved sometime in around, we hope, completed by April, at which point we will start vertical construction of the building subjects to leasing and sort of defining the tenant demand. Phase one will include, as always envisioned, this first series of orange buildings. We did present the project in New York at a trade show for what's known as the International Conference of Shopping Centers. A little junket in Manhattan for the brokers and retail. But we had great interest from a lot of shops, restaurants, and you might have seen some commentary that we are looking to apply for liquor licenses to secure them for the site. We're envisioning really as opposed to just
We only have
national-
10
Yeah.
available, sorry.
So, and we've also had an enormous interest from the hotels. We're actually in negotiations with several hotels. The economics aren't quite yet where they need to be, but we think we will get a hotel deal done shortly. And surprisingly, we have some strong interest for our phase two anchor, which is the cinema. So there's been some cinema interest from 2 or 3 providers. They're national, they're smaller than some of the mega screen theaters, but they are still intended to bring first-run movies to the site. And that would be up in the phase two area. But knowing that our goal is to get them committed, locked in now so that we can sort of plan our merchandising around it. So essentially, we focused really on this series of buildings, which has the need for roughly 2 or 3 anchors, as well as these buildings here, which include sort of the pavilion areas. And just to give people a flavor, consistent with what I think everyone has seen, if you were to drive into the site, the first thing we're hoping that you'll see is something sort of defines the character of the center. We've branded it The Point. It'll include, stone and wood features that we think sort of integrate both the technology, the history, and the natural materials that are found on site. As you come into the site, it's been designed to be very pedestrian friendly, as most of you know, one of the big points. But if you look at the whole overall project, this is really for our retail leasing, so I think some of our graphic artists have taken a little liberty and trying to make it a little more bold, and maybe we're actually trying to capture sort of a New England feel towards the buildings with gables and pitched roofs. But this is wholly consistent with what we've presented before to the Selectmen, the Planning Board, what have you. It'll include walkways, planters. It also includes a neat little trail that runs through this series of buildings so that people are sort of enticed to sort of adventure through the buildings. Enormous restaurant interest, quite candidly, much better than we expected. We are not anticipating national restaurants, but we're actually made a conscious decision to go with regional restaurants that will allow us to do some ethnic restaurants, some seafood, and some other types that aren't just your traditional shopping center style restaurant. We are looking to do seafood, possibly one sports type, family sports bar type concept. I think we're in discussions right now with Italian, as well as I think a Mexican concept. We actually have had some strong interest from some major regional guys, from the Fenway area, that have actually expressed some interest as well. I'm not allowed to tell the actual names of the tenants, but it looks.
You haven't got any
We'll have
ink yet?
What's that?
You haven't got any of them ink yet?
No, we should be starting, quite candidly, what our plan has always been, is we've been pretty much methodical about our process. You know, we went through and we started the earthwork, because we knew it was going to take about a year. And now that most of the earthwork and site work is starting to come together, we thought it was the right time, both in the economy as well as in our own progression, to start the full leasing effort. So our full leasing effort, and I will share this with you, it's kind of a draft. It actually hasn't even been released, but I'll just, this is sort of the branding materials that, oh, by the way, they come with, the point is back. I don't know if anyone has ever played these paddle balls, but they were a big hit in New York. Retail is kind of an interesting thing, whereas you can usually do commercials and things that sell most office tenants, infomercials, so to speak. You know, we were down in New York, and I think there's about 200 brokers hitting each other with these little paddle ball things, and at the end of it, we got a lot of responses. So if the response for the space is as exciting as the response was for the paddles, I think we should be all set. But our leasing activities now are going to kick into full gear. We're looking to actually do some, the webpage should be up by the end of the month. The brokers have been given permission to start broadcasting that we are under construction. Our hope is that we will have a first wave of buildings committed by June, and that we will have actually the first buildings open this fall. So our plan is to construct. First, the real opening, that will probably be a late fall, sort of soft opening. I think our planned opening is for the spring of 2014. So that's when we would think most of the restaurants and most of the shops will come online. It would be great for us right now to ink the hotel deal. So we're trying to bridge that gap with called the financial realities of building a hotel in today's economy and financing it. But we're pretty confident we would do it. But as you can see, the center basically includes a series of sort of Main Street that runs along here, connects us into where will be the eventual theater complex. We've created, the one change that we are contemplating right now that is on Building C, we're contemplating doing the same kind of pass-through that we're doing here by allowing a walkway between the buildings as well. It creates a little bit more plaza area for outdoor tables and what have you. So so that's pretty much it. The hotels have been expressed interest in two pads actually, Building H and Building J. I think our Westford neighbors would like it to be Building H. I think some of the, because it's a more highway and less backyard type thing, location. But that's pretty much it. Assuming, we think we have pretty good, strong interest here. Obviously, all those tenants are eager to find out, who will go in the sort of the anchor spots. And so we are trying to assess that now. Of course, it always comes down to who the anchor is at the end of the day. And we're challenged a little bit in that we're not allowed to have stores bigger than we can't have a Target and we can't have a Home Depot. So we are our limit. The opportunities are less. On the other hand, I think there's been some great interest. We are hoping we will land a sports type of concept. We are also hoping to land a housewares, kitchenwares type outlet. Store. Actually, it's a higher end store that we are in discussions with right now. And then we're having some trouble with the anchor tenant in terms of our hope had been to land an EMS or an LL Bean of that size, that location. They're just not expanding from what we're told by the brokers today. So we're sort of wrestling with that as we speak. And I think for the most part, this ironically, which we thought was going to be the harder part to lease up, is actually, let's say 70% spaces have been asked for by different tenants. So that's pretty much where our going forward. We'll have a really good handle, I think, by April and May as to what the tenanting mix will be for this first phase. Our goal is to start going vertical as soon as I know we pulled the building permit for Building B, Building A. We're finalizing the permit applications for D, E, and F. We have gotten the DEP permit to build the wastewater treatment plant. And That's pretty much where it is. So hopefully by the end of May, we'll know what the first phase of tenanting is. There'll still obviously be some vacancy that we will lease up as we construct. And then we would hope to be going vertical, quite candidly, by that, about the same. Actually, we're doing the vertical construction in anticipation of, most of these spaces are pretty much the same. If you've ever seen retail structures, they're designed to either have 2, 3, or 4 tenants throughout each of the major buildings. So that's pretty much it. It's very excited. I think next 120 days will probably tell us whether we lose our shirt or we're going to do just fine.
Sam, I have one question for you. The townspeople are always asking, anytime they see, I'm sure any of us, what's going in at the church, what's going in at the point. Is there either a website or a public press release, when you finally do ink those deals, so to speak, can you
Yeah,
get it out to the
we are actually,
townspeople?
we'll have, and a lot of the stuff that will be going on the initial webpage are in those books, that's why they're somewhat draft, but you're welcome to look at them. I think, I know if I give it to you, it goes public, but it's still subject to revision because we're still vetting through it. We will have a webpage established by the end of this month. As soon as we have actual permission from tenants to announce. Some are less, some of the restaurants are eager to get their name out there.
Sure.
We usually don't do that until we have a signed lease or at least a binding letter of intent, just because it sends the wrong message if they decide not to go.
Back out. That's not good.
So yes.
So you have a website, you can get it to Keith so you can link it into the town
Happy to
website?
do that.
Yeah, that'd be
You
great.
know, you sent it to me. I got more hits when I showed these pictures on my website than ever before.
There you go,
You've got
right. So vote for Ted.
Well, no.
So that's it. We will have, we are doing it in series of waves of, leasing activity. As soon as this first wave is done, we will then start looking at this. The only tenant that we're taking out of sequence is the interest in the movie theater and the hotels, because those two interests to us define the character of the center. And hopefully we'll have those commitments within the next 90 days. Even though they won't be built until possibly opening the year after 2015, fall or possibly spring of 2015.
I'd like to go back to the road.
Sure.
Do you have anticipated when the poles are gonna be out and the date that all that construction will be done out?
Yeah, we've asked them to be completed with everything July 1st. I think that's the,
Mass Works.
Mass Works by July 1st.
Do you think it'll be done before that?
I think we only have a little left, other than, the things that are time consuming are the utilities. I think substantial completion will be earlier than July 1st. But we can't really open the lanes up until the signals are in place, because I think you don't want to create the perception that there's a signalized highway when their signals aren't up yet. So we need to do that. So I would hope we're truly out of the way and turning signals on by, May or June. I don't know if the sequence of construction for the utilities will allow us to do that, namely the Verizon and Comcast and telecommunications relocation. What we didn't realize when we started the relocation of those poles is that it's major fiber optics for Verizon. And so there's something like 28,000 pairs of wires going through those.
So that's not gonna be an easy one.
No, but they do it all the time. It just takes time, and hopefully they will be at least close enough where we can stage their sequence. I think Littleton Electric has been phenomenal. They've been great to work with. I will tell you, they've been the most responsive utility company we have ever worked with, anywhere in the state or in New England. They've addressed issues. They've been willing to work with our group, and both on the water, the sewer, and the power, both on site and off site.
Excellent. Board members, any other questions? Any comments from the field?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Is it possible that you could have two hotels based on your interest there?
There's, if you tell someone it's free, there's lots of interest for the hotels. I guess right now, we're pretty sure that the demand is for 100 to 110 room business quality hotel. We
National
purposely,
chain?
that is, we are looking really for the upper end of the Marriott, Hilton type chains. We've been approached by Hyatt, Hilton, and Marriott, as preferred vendors, by their preferred vendors. But it comes down to sort of the economics. We would rather wait, even if it's an economic impact on us, to get the right hotel than to just land at one of the many hotels that are just looking to pop them up right now.
Yeah.
So that risk we're willing to take. So that's why it's not positive. You know, we would like to lock the hotel in now. We know there's demand for one based on our own independent studies. I'm not positive there's demand for two,
Okay.
just given what's up in Westford.
Now, there's was it the building D, E, and F there, the little
Yes.
plaza area? What type of tenants are you talking, I mean, are those gonna be like a Verizon store, a yogurt shop? What do you think of her in there?
Well, first of all,
What
Building
types?
D is a two-story building, because the grades on the two parking lots are 17 by about 18 feet. So what it allows is the top-story tenants, it's been designed to be flexible enough to either accommodate an office user,
Yeah.
a health service type user, or additional retail. So that's one of the charms of this whole design with the multi-tier. But what we would envision is right around the plaza, likely to have some type of coffee deal, something like a burger, Be Good Burgers or something, that grill or something that works there. I think these stores would all be, we go by dimensions. There's a 2,400 square foot stores, which we think will be the basic. Those will be probably national chain stores along the bottom. As you get to the second level, and so those will be pretty much, sort of fashion or dry goods type retailers, except for we do know we want one yogurt place, a restaurant, and possibly a signature restaurant out here on Building F. Building G probably won't happen until phase 2, because we'd like to get, this critical mass built first.
Yeah,
It's the most
right.
expensive part of the site, and then this would come on. But I think the seafood place that
Okay.
we're discussing right now is looking to be here. They're looking, we had a very upscale pizza concept that would go down here, that we are wrestling with whether it's that or a different ethnic blend of food. And then these would be dried. On the upper story, we're actually looking to hopefully capture more of the, the Williams-Sonoma type tenants, or the Surlatal, or some different dry goods that will also make it a fun place to just sort of shop and walk. So there, we've been approached by some of the kitchenware places. We've been approached by some of the houseware type stores. We've been approached by on this side. All the corner stores are basically meant to be food or entertainment, and that sort of allows us to energize the street front. But we've been approached by a family restaurant that they have a great sports theme to it. They would go here facing this way, and then take advantage of some of the cute little plaza areas. And then finally, the entertainment retail component would be basically this area up here, anchored by the cinema, probably some of the higher end fashion that we are hoping to attract. And then we would save this really as a final phase for either, as it's been designed, for office or additional retail, depending on where the demand is at the moment we get there. Because this is going to take 2 to 3 years to fully build
Yeah.
out. So, I'm not good enough at predicting what's going to happen tomorrow, never mind 3 years from now. But this becomes a sort of the last mini phase of phase 3.
Okay, all right, well, thanks for that detail.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, 8 o'clock.
Mr. Chairman, you are doing a fantastic job tonight.
Keeping things rolling. All right, Littleton Common Sewer Feasibility Study Committee update. Here's from the sewer committee.
Good evening,
Mr.
everyone.
Denali, how are you?
Steve Yonley, Vice Chair. Don't know what you got in your package, if you get copies of the RFQ that went out. Did you get copies of that?
RFQ we have.
Yep. And we'll hold those. One thing we do have new for everyone, is a little bit of a timeline leading us up here for the next couple of months, just to kind of indicate where we're at. Mr. Knox.
Also with me tonight, Bob Zimmerman from Charles River Watershed. Just give the board a kind of a quick update on where we are in the process. Last week, a request for qualifications was published in the Central Register. Going out looking for firms that would be interested in sort of what we consider the next phase of the project, which would be a preliminary design report. The RFQ would be out asking for companies to basically submit their package, kind of like a dog and pony show, if you will, to prove that they're qualified for what is sort of envisioned with the project. On the second page of the RFQ, there is sort of a timeline. There's a pre-meeting on the 20th of this month for any firms if they want to come in and ask questions. That's at 11 o'clock here at Town Hall. And then the RFQs would due back for March 13th. And then the committee will work to then kind of shortlist that, maybe conduct some interviews, and then proceed. With that, the committee will be also reviewing with Charles River Watershed the scope of work for the request for proposals that would be for the preliminary design report. The preliminary design report would bring us a lot closer. The term that's been used quite frequently by the committee is kind of the 30,000 foot level, as if you were in an airplane. A preliminary design report really starts to fine tune some of the ingredients in the plan. You start getting some actual data. That would get us down to maybe call it a 2,000 foot level on your approach. But with that, we'd like to ask the board for a placeholder for a warrant article for Springtown meeting. We're working to draft the warrant article at this time. We understand what was mentioned here earlier tonight about timelines for getting warrant articles in to get voted on by the board, and then moving back and forth with Keith. And he just said tonight that April 12th, with this room and everything goes well, will be the deadline to get the wording in so it goes into the book that gets distributed off for a town meeting. With that, going forward, the committee is also planning on another public presentation. The thought is maybe 3 or 4 weeks prior to town meeting, and then also prior to a warrant article on the town meeting floor, we'll do a similar type of presentation. Some other items that the committee's been working on. We've updated some of the frequently asked questions and added some additional ones on the committee's webpage, on the town website. And also with that, the committee has worked with Charles River Watershed to kind of have a supplemental webpage that's outside of the town's website that I believe is now up and active. I don't know if there's a link on the town site at this point, but just recently became active. So,
I'll go and check. I know we asked.
It's at lcsfs.weebly, weebly.com.
What is that, W-E?
weebly.com. It's a mouthful, but once you type it in, it's all done.
what that'll end up being is a little, something that's a little more interactive. It'll be kind of like a blog. There'll be the ability to potentially submit comments and that type of thing on that. Gives a little bit more of what we're doing. Also up on the webpage there's a map. I think you might have gotten a copy in your package. Of some additional sites that we're going to be doing some real preliminary soil testing, looking for discharge sites. I think there's 6 or 7 sites identified. We will end up narrowing that down to a few and digging some more test holes once we get a little further on into spring here, now that we got 2 feet of snow on the ground. that's kind of where we're at.
At this point, you really don't have any idea of what kind of money they're gonna be needing for this warrant article, do you?
The PDR, the preliminary design report, gets us to, or gets the committee to 30% design. So it's actually solid numbers with actual letters of intent from organizations that may be hosting pipes and the like, which we don't have right now. The feasibility study is literally at 30,000 feet. There were a lot of conversations done with people, but nobody shook hands and signed on a dotted line. PDR gets you to signatures on dotted lines. Before the committee can give you a number, an engineering analysis of the scope of work, and a not to exceed number needs to be calculated. So I believe the committee is thinking of submitting a warrant article with sort of a blank where the number goes, and then getting that number to you before the warrant articles are actually go for publication.
That's the procedure that we use with the water department, where, you know, bids were opened by a certain date. That was after the deadline for insertion of the article, so we left a blank for the motion in the town meeting report that goes out, but we filled in the blank by the time of town meeting.
Placeholder.
Yeah. I'll lean on Ted, because I know he's pretty intimate with this stuff. Any thoughts on this?
Well, I think it's important to notice that Steve talked about two different processes that we're going through. One of them is the request for qualifications, and that allows us to really take a look at the people and actually assess their qualifications in this type of work. This is not a traditional treatment plant. It's not gonna be, just something that's gonna be, people are gonna take all their off-the-shelf units and put them into our drawing. It's gonna be something pretty specialized. So we wanna check for qualifications, and then once we qualify them, those are the only people that are gonna be bidding on it, because there could be requirements depending on which way it's all bid out, and we wanna make sure that they're qualified. We don't wanna get stuck with just the lowest bidder. So if we qualify them first, we know everybody's qualified, and then we go with the, from there on, that's what the RFP is for, the request for proposals for a preliminary design report. And that's what's gonna be the thing that brings us down from 30,000 to 1 or 2,000. Just an interesting thought, at that point, we also have been talking about, that might be the end of our charge too. At that point, we may go into a different, we might have to go into sewer commission or something that we need to think about at that point, whether or not it's the same people on this committee. And then that PDR is really the basis for the design. I just lost my train of thought, but that's going to be the jumping off point from that point. Oh, the other point is, after the PDR, that's going to be another go or no-go. We've talked about this on the committee. We've been very upfront that we're going to go to the town and ask at different phases. So this is the first phase. This is the first step that we're asking for, and then after the PDR, that's really where we look at it. Is this really feasible, or what is the feasibility of this? What are the cost benefits? What are the costs of the town? What can the town make some money? Is it going to break even? Proposition, those kind of things. So after the PDR, it's a go or no go. Another vote by a town meeting.
Okay, so at this point, we really don't know if it's feasible enough to do it until we get this quote.
The sewer committee is confident enough to request the money for the PDR. That's how confident. There are, under certain conditions, that this will work. And that's the way I want to put it. You guys, if you have another way you want to put it, but basically the committee feels confident enough that this will work based on our preliminary report, that we're going to go ahead and ask to go to the next step. So sorry to jump in on the end, but.
Just to expand on that, with the preliminary design report, what that does is it gives a lot harder analysis on, like say a networking of pipe, if there's the potential for maybe 2 discharge sites instead of 1, gets into kind of the phasing concept that's been talked about. So it gets kind of, real tight a look at what needs to be done. And at that point, as Ted said, that could be a go or no-go point, where you could say that this might only cost, $2, or it could cost $200 million. You kind of need to get to that next step before you can really make
an educated decision.
So based on the money that's spent at this juncture, you don't have a conclusion whether we need to continue to go forward, or can you enlighten me a little bit?
If I could, maybe I can help clarify here. The sewer is feasible.
Okay.
So the analysis that's been done for the town demonstrates that in fact a sewer can be constructed here and serve the common and the industrial areas and be economically self-sufficient, where the 102 properties inside those two districts actually pay for it, and it doesn't end up on everybody else's property taxes. But nobody has, for example, IBM, which has given some intimations that it might want to expand on site, is not signed on a dotted line. There's no, a conversation of a vision is one thing. A signature on a dotted line that says, I'm on the hook for 60,000 gallons of wastewater a day now and into the future is a completely different thing. And the preliminary design report actually, a significant portion of that, besides the actual designing, 30% design of the facilities, is the contracts with the folks who end up being on the hook when it goes to construction.
Board members, any other questions?
I know you guys have been, I was on it in the very infant stages, and you guys have come a long way, and, I've heard a lot of positive from townspeople as you come out with these public education meetings too, so look forward to that.
All right.
Um, Just a question about the chart. This takes us to what stage? Is this
There's
the whole project or just?
No, that's not the whole project.
just the
That
part
takes
you
you to the, below the line there. There's a line sort of, a third of the way down the page. So that's the whole request for qualifications process.
Okay.
Then below the line is what happens with a request for proposal to do the preliminary design report. And that requires a town meeting vote and
So that's the
town budget
30%
vote.
point?
That's what, that analysis takes maybe a year or 18 months, and yes, that will result in the completion of a preliminary design report.
So, Bob, just for clarification, at the end of this, it says notice to proceed, that's item 29, and that's September. So that is notice to proceed, so you give the contractor for the PDR, you're starting the PDR in September of 2013.
Right,
Okay, and then it's a year to 18 months to finish the PDR.
right.
The other thing, and I brought this up before, and I was reading this earlier today, and I found the spot that I wanted to talk about, and I can't find it again, because I should have underlined it, should have had a pen in my hand. But we're talking about the density of development that's going to change as a result of the sewer. And as a result of the change in bylaws that will allow for the greater density. But what my question has been, and continues to be, is when do we get to see, like we saw with Sam Park's project, a rendition of what building that density out to the maximum the bylaw would allow will look like, what it could look like, the kind of change that the common will undergo to achieve the economics of being able to pay for the sewer. Because obviously that has to happen here. The people who own the property want to maximize the value of their property because they're not paying betterments on the sewer. And I would really like to see what that might look like, what a trip down Littleton Common would look like in the full build-out scenario. Which, in order for you're anticipating that in your report, that's where we're gonna go. That's where we should go. That's part of the whole project that you're proposing, is getting us there to put the density together rather than have it spread out. So I'm just, once again, asking for that request for the visual, somewhat like what we saw.
We, early on in this process, we considered coming out and shooting pictures of the common and, the Great Road area. And transforming that into what that might look like with 2-story and 3-story buildings on it. The problem with that is that people actually own those sites. And our cartoon vision might not be theirs for their own sites. We could certainly show you what's happened in other towns the size of Littleton or about the size of Littleton around the country where this sort of thing has gone on. But unlike Sam, who owns that property in its entirety and has the ability to design the concept for all 90 acres there, there are 102 property owners in these 2 districts. And I think each of them has certainly the right to envision. The way the committee has protected the town against investing in sewer capacity that it then doesn't use is to phase that capacity over time, sort of just-in-time delivery. So in other words, there's no period in the 20 years that the report that we did analyzes the economics for the town, that the town is dependent on 20 years out construction happening to actually pay for the facilities. In other words, the plant comes online after construction with enough capacity to handle all of the existing development and perhaps something on the order of 25, 30, 35,000 gallons capacity in excess of that to allow for some expansion. Then as more expansion is desired, those people, when they put together their building permits and their plans and get construction, they pay into the plant a betterment fee for the completed design. And on the basis of that, the next phase or module of what's called anaerobic digestion, the process that's being used here to treat the waste, is installed and meets their demand. So we never find ourselves, or Littleton never finds itself in a situation kind of like the town of Acton, where they built 500,000 gallons of capacity 12 years ago, and right now they're using 136,000 gallons of that capacity. And the betterment fees are enormous, and their monthly payments are enormous because they're still waiting for that 20 years of development that they anticipated to occur. The idea here is to build what you need plus a little and never put the town at risk for something that might not happen.
And I think that just the PDR, as you explained it, is gonna get you to that point to be able to say, those 120 properties, yes, we will. And get it, so that they can start that phase 1 or propose to the town, phase 1, and go before town meeting.
The key here is that they're required to pay a betterment fee when they want to expand. So they're really on the hook.
That actually brings up another question, but I want to go back to your first point, in that, yes, I think we should protect the rights of the landowners very much, but I also think that we have to protect this community by providing some sort of rendition of what capability this will give us as far as density of growth and the look of the common. I don't want to presume for a second that any landowner may, they may want to keep their old-fashioned New England timber home that's converted to a business just the way it is. That's fine. But we created a bylaw that allows for a great deal more density and height and other things. And by enacting the sewering process, we then enable that bylaw to proceed to the maximum. That's my comment to that. The second thing is, it's an interesting process that they're going to pay before, when they file for their permit, my question is, how long is it gonna take to, let's say we get a bunch of landowners that just wanna file the permits and pay the betterments. At that point, how long does it take for the town to respond with the increased size of the sewer in order to accommodate those additions?
The sewer pipes won't change, and the building itself won't change. So the cost of erecting a building which has the capacity, by the way, all of the treatment for these kinds of plants occurs inside a facility. This is not your father's sewer system with the big separator tanks and that sort of thing. They actually have these inside skyscrapers in Battery Park in New York City. Anyway, you build the building for the capacity to house the anaerobic digesters that treat up to a maximum of 250,000 gallons, which is what our study indicated was the maximum from this district on a daily basis. But you install 100,000 gallons, let's say, I don't know, but let's say for the sake of argument, initially, okay? Which is the 65,000 gallons per day currently being used plus some expansion number. So the discharge sites, the sewer pipes, and the building itself, you've got all the permits for those and the facilities exist. The expensive part is the actual anaerobic digestion treatment. And you only add that module, which doesn't take a tremendous amount of time, until you're in a phase that actually demands it, where folks have signed up and said, you know, like Sam did, you know, I expect to be online in September or October of 2013, and then 2014, and then 2015. That's a pretty easy anticipation to phase the treatment capacity at the plant. So in other words, up front you have the permits for the constructed wetland to treat the waste, treated effluent, and their anaerobic digestion. You just don't put in the expensive part until you actually need it.
Okay, so it's your estimation that you're gonna be able to do this without creating a greater financial burden on the landowner who decides he's going to expand. The time frame is not gonna be extended out that much, is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean,
Sure.
This is why we need a consultant to answer a lot of these questions, but this kind of stuff is done all the time. So people like me who's not familiar with the actual phasing and construction, but these landowners and these, you know, the contractors and the engineers who actually write the PDR and who actually end up building the system, they've all done this many times before. So a lot of these things that, you know, you or I might be concerned about is just everyday business for them. So as far as the scheduling, those pieces will fall into place by the professionals who do them. The other thing is, you were asking a couple times about what's this going to look like. You want some renderings of properties and things like that. You know, that may or may not be possible, however it is. But I think after the PDR, what we will have is, we'll say, okay, this lot is going to be able to have this much capacity, and that will result in, you know, whatever, an X-story building with so many square feet and things like that. So even though it may not be, you know, pretty pictures, it'll be at least on a plan of, you know, so you can get some sort of vision from it.
And the buildings will be constructed based on the overlays.
Yeah, and, yeah.
There are restrictions in the overlay.
Yeah.
That, you know, as far as fronts and construction and all
Percent
that stuff.
impervious and all that
Right,
stuff
yeah.
still plays into this.
Yeah.
I think what you guys are ultimately trying to do is allow for different types of uses, not so much building up and out, 'cause some of those lots, they're already built out to the
Well,
max.
the bylaw does allow for greater building up
Yeah.
and greater density.
Mhm.
That's why the bylaw was created.
I don't disagree with that,
And-
but there's still other,
and
there's
this-
still other
This is an
controlling
enabling
factors.
factor, and I think the two fit together, and I think all I'm looking for is, when we take those pieces and put together, what do we think that might look like? And because I think the townspeople are gonna wanna weigh that. They're gonna wanna say, well, what's gonna happen to our common? And we need to be able to, and it doesn't all fall in the sewer committee's hands to do that, but I think we as town officials need to be able to say, this is where we think this is gonna take us, it's our best guess at it, and and then the townspeople will have the most informed choice, because they're the ones that are gonna enable this to happen.
I think Ted, you know, answered those questions just as he said, you know, you won't have the pretty pictures, but in lot number 27, you know, daily flow is gonna be 127,000 gallons or whatever it is. And based on the bylaw, that means a two-story, 400,000 square foot building or whatever.
And there's no saying that, you know, the engineer or, you know, doing the PR can't get an architect and say, okay, you know, take this corner and, you know, show what it looks like with a, you know, an X-story building, you know, they got the capacity calculated and do something. I don't think it's gonna be able to afford us to do a whole streetscape, but, you know, a corner or two to give some sort of typical building. And you talked about, you know, the sewer being the enabling factor for all this happening, really, it's the limit, of the lack of a sewer that is, you know, the limiting factor that's allowing any of these property owners to build out, too.
And limited to improve too, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, look at, the pizza shop has barely squeaked that pub in there, and I mean, just imagine what could really be done with that Conant building if they were allowed to do something other than, you know, whatever we have retail there.
Alex, we could do those renderings. We do that kind of stuff all the time, where we take streetscape and, you know, in the space of looking at the slide, you know, it morphs into something else. And we'd be happy to do that, but I don't want 102 property owners chasing me around town saying, well, I never, you know, I mean, all it is a hypothetical.
Yeah.
This is what a two-story building on this site looks like. What does it look like?
I wouldn't want to suggest for a minute what a landowner would be able to do with their land. But as I say, I think we have to draw that balance, because I wouldn't want to tell the public, well, we're gonna do the sewer and we have the zoning thing, and you know, we don't really have a vision for you of what it might end up looking like. I think we owe them that vision.
If I might request, if you want us to do that, if the entire Board of Selectmen felt that those kinds of renderings would be useful, if you could, as a board, send to the committee a request, and they ask us to do it, we'd be happy to do it.
Well, it's not even for this phase right now, though, I don't think, Alex. You're not talking about now. We're talking, this is down the road before we go to final, are you asking for that for now?
I think that when you get to here, we should have what the picture should look like.
At that point or after that
After
point?
that
Because
point.
once we
That's
get to
just
this point, once we finish this phase, you know, this is the kickoff, so this is the kickoff of the
18 months
PDR.
later.
So once we get through the PDR, that stuff will be more clear. But I don't think we can do it at the start of the PDR, because that's what the PDR is really to determine.
I think when you get down here, you're going to have a good idea of where you're gonna end up.
Where's that?
By the time when you're down here and you're
But this Gantt,
approaching the 30%.
yeah, but this Gantt
Yes,
chart
yes.
doesn't show that.
Yes, right.
The 30% at that point, when you hit 30%, you should have a rendering of what the impact is going to look
Yes,
like.
and
or
this
what
is-
it could look like.
Exactly, and I think they will. So that's just to clarify, he's not looking for that now. This is the kickoff of that 30% part, so 12 months to 18 months
You need
after
another-
this.
You need another 18 months. out.
Yes,
There you go.
right, but I think there's two things happening at this point here. Like I said, I believe that's at the point where we have to say goodbye to the Littleton Common Sewer Feasibility Study Committee, and we also, I believe, we say goodbye to CRWA at that point too, where they step aside because frankly, it gets beyond their scope, beyond their capacity, and we hand it off to the design. So that's something else that should be clear.
When the committee and the town have hired a consultant to move forward with the PDR, we disappear into the woodwork.
But I do think people are gonna ask these
Oh, yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
And we're going to be asking them for, we don't know what the number is, but let's kick around something like 300,000 or whatever, numbers have been floating around somewhere. I think they're not gonna look at that lightly, and they're gonna wanna know what this is getting them. And I think that's when we're gonna first have to start those discussions. This is what we think might happen to the common.
Well, it's something we can put in, consider for the public presentation.
Yep, definitely.
You have to bring that to the chair, though.
If I can get back to some basics so the public knows, you talked about anaerobic digestion, that's the type of thing. How new is that? How long has it been going on? Where has it been used? You mentioned one of the one of the skyscrapers, I think, use it. And how does it differ from what we see, the big turning tanks that you see in certain places?
Anaerobic digestion is a process that was invented actually quite a while ago, 40 or 50 years ago.
Really?
Yeah. It's a process of eliminating oxygen so that special kinds of bugs can eat away at the organic material in wastewater and in the process create methane. Methane is 96% the same thing as natural gas, so that can be burned to generate energy. It's a way of turning organic waste into a valuable commodity. And the nice thing is that it can be done all inside a building. There aren't these big separators and that sort of thing. And there aren't smells associated with it. So it's, an advanced technology. It's been built in Massachusetts on several occasions. Actually, there's no technology that's considered in the feasibility study or by the committee that it isn't used around the state or around the nation. The concept that's really different here is the whole notion of a density zone and sewering only that density zone and having that density zone pay for all of this without having the rest of the town on the hook through property taxes or outside property taxes to pick up the tab. Most sewer systems historically have tried to get everybody and his brother into the system to reduce the cost. The concept here is to use the organic waste in such ways that it actually generates profit and brings down the cost to the 102 property owners for them to for their betterment fees and for their monthly service fee.
What do they have set up in Sudbury today? Isn't there a new treatment in Sudbury I heard about?
I'm not sure. I believe Fort Devens, about a year ago, 2 years ago, started construction on anaerobic digestion there. It's being considered at a number of places. So definitely this is not experimental technology. This has been around for
It'd be
quite a while.
nice to see what one of the, maybe a rendering of what one of those facilities looks
On the
like.
Fresh Pond Circle, the one right down there, right
Yeah.
off of Fresh Pond Circle, it's a huge plant right there, exactly what these guys are talking about. Deer Island, I believe, too, is a anaerobic.
The big biomass things are in effect anaerobic digesters, but you can't treat, anaerobic digestion can't handle 360 million gallons of water a day, which is what they treat at Deer Island. So that's more like your father's wastewater treatment plant.
And don't think we're gonna have those big eggs sitting in town either.
Any other comments, board members? So next steps is that we're looking at placing a placeholder for a warrant article.
Yes. Your public, your public education meeting?
We were shooting for 3 to 4 weeks prior to town meeting. As, the next meeting or two that we have, we'll firm up the date and we'll be sure to get that out to the board, get it up on the website and everything like that.
Channel 8.
Yeah, we'll try to do it again at the police station maybe, so it can be televised, must-see TV.
Yeah.
So if we could plan to have the committee come back a month from tonight with a post-article, we could talk about that.
Very good.
Sounds like
Close article with a number, or?
Question for Keith about this. Because when we created the bylaw, we used MAPC. Is there any chance we might be able to get some assistance with them in developing the rendering of the vision?
I think it's worth asking MAPC for a couple of reasons. One of which is that MAPC, through its Sustainable Communities Consortium, is underwriting smart sewering projects involving CRWA and other communities. In addition to having the relationship with Littleton for the Littleton Common zoning. So I think so there's no harm in us asking the MAPC staff if they can't do some of the renderings that we'd like to see.
We're actually working with them right now on 2 other smart sewer studies, one in Rentham and one in Sherburne. So the effect of the initial study is already being felt. There are a lot of towns that are very interested in this whole approach to sewering.
So we'll ask. Yeah, we'll ask MAPC.
All right, well, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We'll see you in a month. Okay, a little bit behind, we'll get back on track here. Fiscal year 14 budget update. Operating
Thanks, Bob.
budget. Thanks, guys.
I just wanted to give you an update on the fiscal 2014 operating budget as we're going through the planning process.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of changes that I just wanted to highlight in the budget document. We've received formal notification from the Neshoba Tech on their assessment for fiscal 14, and it's about 72,000 less than I had planned based on the number of students enrolled. And
It was a good thing.
yes. So we saved a little bit there. We picked up a new expense, however, with the addition of 2 students going to Minuteman Regional Tech. And that is the most expensive technical school in the state at about $20,000 a student. So that $72,000 savings was offset with $40,000 in expenses. I did send the information to the superintendent at the tech to see, if she had any comment or any thoughts on it. So if I get anything back from her, I'll share that with the board.
So it's up 32K net savings?
Correct. So our budget deficit was about $350,000 at the last update. It's down to $318,000, which is 0.8% of the total spending plan. So it's a big number. We're still working on addressing it, but we're making progress. So.
Nice job. Well, I guess it pays off to get started on this.
Yeah, it's definitely. And we are still monitoring some pretty significant components of the budget. We're still looking at state aid. We've got level funding assumed. We've got, as Keith mentioned earlier, the health insurance. We're projecting a 10% increase with the additional fire department staffing that's been proposed. That may be less if our premiums come in at a lower rate. We're also making some assumptions on the state assessments and charges, both on the town and school side, so once those numbers get firmed up, they will change. And we're estimating $300,000 in new growth, and we'll be monitoring that through the summer until we...
What do we think that's coming from, the new growth?
It's based on a rolling average over the last 5 years. And in the last few years, it's been heavy on the personal property side with the types of development that's going on in town. But it's a 5-year rolling average, and we're fairly confident that we can recognize at least that. We did receive notification from the school department that they are able to operate within the $16,400,000 that we had earmarked for them within the budget, so that number is being firmed up.
16.3?
16.4.
Can I do it 16.3?
We will be having a discussion with the school department tomorrow night.
No, and I did, after our meeting last time, I called the chair, and I talked to Mike Fontanella too, because I was waiting, it's the same thing, you're just confirming what he said, but, I was worried at that point, we're carrying a number where they fall in line, and at that point, he said they'd be okay with that. They'd work with that 5%, and whatever they have to take from their reserves.
Correct. And they're planning on taking about, $547,000 out of their reserves, so, which can be supported based on the current information.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the update on the operating budget. I don't know if you have any questions on that. I can go to capital from there.
Well, I also talked to the FinCom chair, and after we gave him our goals last time, and he said, those were some spending goals, with the increase in the fire department and the keeping the school where it was. He's also looking for places to cut it from. So, have we identified areas? $318,000 is a lot of money to cut. We're doing better than previous years. You say it's only 0.8% though. So, do we have areas identified that could possibly be there, or does someone need to start rolling up the sleeves to start looking at those?
I would We have made some additions to the operating budget, which, again, I've kind of summarized.
Yeah.
The fire department staffing represents $165,000. You know, there are a number of different approaches you could take. I would rather see some development in the revenue projections before we identify what needs to be cut at this point. I think
But you're
it's a
saying you're not
little-
gonna get state aid until, you know, I mean, you're not gonna get your new growth estimates till after the summer, right?
Right, but we will firm up the estimates. We've always been conservative with the new growth estimates. We've always hit our targets. I want to see what is developing throughout the next month to really firm those numbers up. I need to get the health insurance
Okay.
premiums numbers.
So that's next month also?
Within the next month, we'll have a lot of progress. We'll have the Maya rates within 3 weeks. That's a big factor.
Okay.
It could, you know, well be balanced,
Mhm.
you know, with that.
Okay.
So I think a little bit more work needs to be done before we need to identify some targets for reductions. There are some obvious ones just through the discussions.
You know, to give you guys some credit here, you know, we are in better shape this year than we were last year, this time
Yes.
last year.
Yes.
So we're making progress and we're heading in the right direction.
And I'll tell you,
Just
after
the
all,
news about the school committee, and, you know, that's huge progress over where we were last year.
Absolutely.
well, after all that talk, and I was, you know, I was very worried last year when we were talking about kicking the can down the road and the can gets bigger next year. I think it's a lot more positive than I anticipated this year being
Yes.
when we were sitting here 1 year ago. So,
Keep up the good work.
So if we go to capital from that point, we've had changes to the capital request just even since this printing last Friday. I did receive a new list from the school that I will need to update the plan in. It's a reduced list based on the original requests. So I will go through that this week and.
We were just talking about it here.
So I will go through and update that. The prioritized list represents $283,000 in capital requests. Just to provide the board an update, the finance committee has met over the last few weeks and has started looking through the capital plan and identifying some items that maybe could be deferred or removed from the plan. I'll go through those with you. And I have met with the departments that were affected by it to give them the information, but the plan is now presented to you in priority order by the departments, as discussed in the last.
this memo dated February 7th?
Yes.
That's all prioritized,
With the exception of the school request, and I noted that in the,
because everything's priority 1? Is that what it is, Matt?
I have a new list from the school, so
Okay.
I will insert that into your next update. So on the items that the finance committee originally kind of identified as maybe questionable, the fire command vehicle at $44,000 is something that's being actively discussed. The thermal imaging systems replacement upgrade at $30,000 is also being discussed. This particular one is because the equipment that's in service now is in service and operating. So they were just kind of saying maybe that's something that we can push out. The fire station generator at $140,000. With the facility, the study is going on for that site. They wanted to wait until the study had come out formally and been released with those recommendations. So they kind of targeted that as maybe not being done right now. Within the highway department's requests, the forklift purchase at $15,000 was kind of targeted as possibly being removed because they're currently using the light department's forklift, and while sometimes that does cause scheduling conflicts because everybody needs it at once, it might be manageable. The sidewalk paver was discussed as something that, you know, could be, we don't have one now, it's in addition to fleet, maybe we could remove it. And the roll-off dumpster truck at $75,000 was also looked at. They're currently moving the containers with the loader. And so they discussed maybe we could just continue that practice. They did not discuss the school items because I said I hadn't received an updated list. I have that now. The finance committee has it, so they'll be able to discuss it tomorrow night. And there were no other items that were targeted for removal. As far as the plan itself, we have about $1,476,000 that we can utilize for capital if the town so chooses. We had $1,007,000 in requests initially. So we need to reduce at least $213,000 from the list. And again, that list that the Finance Committee targeted is more than that. So, you know, we could address a lot of capital within the fiscal 14. Other things that came up in the discussion was maybe the creation of a capital stabilization account, which works much like a regular stabilization account, but it can only be used on capital items. It's earmarked for capital. So if you see that you have a ladder truck, for instance, in the next fiscal year after this, and you know you're going to need to save some money, you could appropriate money in this fiscal year into the stabilization account and then use it the next fiscal year to help fund a large purchase like that. And there's a lot of large purchases. There's buildings. There's system replacements that might come up that could require some significant funding. The other thing that was discussed was funding for open space. There is no request anywhere within the funding plan for fiscal 14 for open space, whether it's funding CPC or just the land acquisition account or anything. Nobody has made a request, in all honesty. Until I get a request, it doesn't hit the plan. So there was a lot of discussion about that. In light of that, I did, for discussion purposes only, added a community preservation funding article at the end of this list in order to address your goal 4A for fiscal 2013, which you could appropriate a sum of money up to $250,000, any amount 0 to $250,000, in order to reach the maximum surcharge amount of 3%. We currently have a surcharge of 1%. That's about $125,000 a year. So doubling that, or adding the 2 more percent, would require $250,000 in funding. I know that's a lot, but you could fund it in any level up to that. What that would do is allow you to qualify for the state match, which is currently 45 cents on the dollar. So you get a larger state match into your community preservation fund. Now, once you put it in there, it's restricted to community preservation activities, but it is, just something that is in there for your discussion only. And that's really the update.
Yeah, that's coming out of our coffers. We're not surcharging the taxes to.
No, it would come out of the funding for capital and.
No, we're allowed to allocate 3% total per year, and so we're only doing 1% through the town, through the taxes. So
Surcharge.
1% for the
The
surcharge.
equivalent of the
We
other
could match-
two could come from another revenue
Yeah.
source.
Capital equipment needed.
Like,
Yeah, I think,
Just,
Um,
again, purely for discussion.
yeah.
Well, it's a good idea to try to maximize the revenues, but at the same time, we do have 2 revenue sources that's permanently dedicated to open space, cell phone towers,
Yeah.
and CPC funds.
well, are we putting the cell tower money into the CPC to increase the to get
That hasn't come
45
up for
cents?
discussion, we had talked about it.
Yeah,
but
Yeah, we
never
said we were
really
gonna have
brought it
that
forward
discussion
anywhere.
by this town meeting.
Yeah.
Because if we don't come up with a strategy for putting more money in the CPA fund, then we're losing out on the chance to get the 45 cents on the dollar in state matching.
I think that's a discussion for another.
Yeah, but is the board in general agreement that we don't want to use the capital plan to fund CPC or CPAC? Is that general, because, we should provide that direction right
I
now?
would say, I might personally say, keep the capital where it is.
Yeah.
I agree with that. We can, I think we need to have, like
Okay.
Selectman Carr said, we need to have a discussion at a later date.
Right.
About cell tower funds.
But I'm talking about capital plan.
I think the discussion about whether we receive money into the CPC should be a separate discussion from capital. And
Yeah.
if we decide, the finance committee decides that we want to set a certain amount aside to achieve the 3%,
From
capital,
capital?
like everything else, is on the table for discussion as a source to get it. But I think we shouldn't say capital is the reason, we're not gonna spend some money on capital, we're gonna put that into CPC. I think we first have to have a discussion whether we have a commitment that we want to bring ourselves to the 3%. Then we look at how we're gonna do that, not necessarily backwards where capital is targeted to do.
Right,
Yeah.
that's an approach, once we start talking about CPC, but right now, as far as talking about capital for this year, I think there's 4 of us who expressed that we wanted to direct the finance committee that we do not want to use we don't want to use capital funds to fund CPC this year.
Fiscal year 14.
Right.
Fiscal 14.
When we, if at a later date,
I don't think we want to exclude it, but we don't want to
Well-
buy into a plan that says we're gonna circumvent capital programs and take that money automatically and put it into CPC.
right, that's what I'm saying.
I think we
Yeah.
all agree on
Yeah.
that.
Right, that's what I'm saying, yeah, okay.
But I don't think that if the discussion comes up about how to fund CPC,
Right.
capital is automatically off the table.
No, that's not what I'm saying, that's the corollary, but, yeah, okay, so we're all set for that.
Okay. Thanks for that update. Board members, any other discussion? I have a couple things.
No, I just think, I've been thinking about this capital plan, and every year we put a little bit more money into the capital plan, and, you know, stuff comes off the debt, or off the pay, and it goes automatically in the capital plan. So in theory, that capital will keep growing. I think as a goal next year, I'm just saying now, so in case I forget, I think we want to determine where we want that capital plan to get to, like, how much do we, you know, what is it, how much is this year? $1.4 million, $1.5 million? Do we feel that $2 million is enough? Do we want to try and grow it to $3 million? I think that's just something we need to.
I think, you know, that
discuss.
suggestion of the stabilization fund is-
Right. Yeah.
comes into your discussion
Yeah.
as to, okay, here is the mark, and anything over goes there. I think that's a great.
Yeah, and I think we need, you know, is it based on a percentage? I mean, it'd be great to just keep growing it, because it'd be nice to be able to pay cash, it's nice paying cash for, you know, ambulances, fire trucks, and things like that. Police cruisers, don't want to discriminate.
I think that's a good discussion to have.
Yeah. Other than that, thanks.
Anybody else? Thanks, Bonnie. Okay.
So tomorrow night at the Finance Committee, it's a joint meeting with FinCom and School Committee.
Yeah, how many folks are showing up?
We have
on the-
folks that are able to attend that meeting.
I'll be there.
I will not, I will be in New Jersey.
I would likely be there.
I'll be there.
I probably won't.
Okay, so it looks like we've got
So we'll have
three out of,
we'll have
three out of
a
five.
presentation. And Bonnie will be there and I'll be there, so,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, very good. Okay, moving along here, management contract extensions. Assistant town administrator, and police chief, and deputy police chief.
As the board had discussed in an executive session a couple of weeks ago, there are 4 management contracts which are being proposed for action by the board now. All 4 are extensions, although I have to say some of them are shorter extensions than others. We have the police chief, the deputy police chief, the assistant, we forgot to call Bonnie, we were gonna call Bonnie the deputy. The assistant town administrator for finance and budget, and the town administrator, myself. There are 3 of those contracts expire this year. The 4th, the police chief's, his contract is through August of 2014. And he's alerted us that in reviewing his situation with the Middlesex retirement system, they prefer that he have a retirement date of the beginning of September rather than the end of August in order that he qualify for that month of August 2014 in his retirement balance. So the request is to extend his contract by those 2 days. The remaining contracts would, in the case of the deputy chief, it's been the practice on the advice of Labor Council that we have 1 year at a time contracts with the deputies, in part because there's statutory authority for contracts with chiefs, with town accountants, with town administrators. And for the deputy police chief, we had 1 year at a time contracts, and the current one would expire on June 30, so the proposal is that there be 1 year extension for the coming fiscal year through June 30, 2014. The other 2 contracts, Bonnie's contract and mine, are 3-year contracts, both expire later this year, and it's been the practice earlier in the year to consider extending contracts so that you can take that vote now, and then the new 3-year contracts can take effect later. All of the contracts follow the model that was set in November by implementing the classification and compensation plan that was adopted by the November special town meeting. There are no cost of living adjustments called for in the life of any of these contracts. Rather, they would go to the grade that the position is at and take the appropriate step in each of the fiscal years that's coming up. So based on the initial conversation that the board had a couple of weeks ago, Labor Council was directed to draft the employment agreements, which you have in front of you tonight. I should also say, we're not leaving out the fire chief, but he's got a contract that's in place, and it covers, the same pattern for the same period of time. In the future, when we bring, contracts forward as a group, his could be included as well, but he's in place right now.
The implementation of the sick leave policies also.
Yeah.
Yes, and
That's key.
yes, that's right. In November, in the amendments that the board approved for all the contracts in November, the sick leave, the limited sick leave language that was called for by town meeting and union contracts is being implemented or was implemented for the management employees.
Excellent. Okay. Board members, discussion, thoughts, comments?
I'll make a motion. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize execution of the contract amendments implementing the classification and compensation plan report adopted November 14, 2012, special town meeting as follows. For the police chief through September 2, 2014, rather than August 31, 2014. For deputy police chief for July 2013 to June 30, 2014. For the assistant town administrator for finance and budget, town accountant / town accountant from August 7 to 2013 through August 6, 2016. And for the town administrator for September 10, 2013 through September 9, 2016.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
It seems to be a big deal to do that,
Yes.
like with no real discussion, but I mean, it's people who, we interact with every day, that it seems like a big deal, but it's just not.
We've talked about it, though. I mean,
Yes.
this is not the first discussion we've had about the, compensation plan went through town meeting.
And well, and it made it so much,
Town meeting.
it made it so much easier having that, we don't have to go into negotiations every year. And it
Very
just makes
nice.
it.
Having
yeah.
gone through those negotiations is very nice.
Better to get it done earlier.
Yeah.
Always like getting
So,
those
The
contracts.
only question I have is the review, your review been done?
No, I will do a review with Keith in April. That's when it was done. Last year was in April. So, I'll do a review. If anything bad or good you want me to add to that review?
And I think as far as that, I mean, if I had a problem, I would, if I had any type of problem, I'd let them know throughout the year anyway, I'm not gonna,
Any comments?
I'm not gonna sit on something for 6 months, wait for a review.
All right. And thank you, on behalf of all of us, thank you very much. We all really enjoy working here, and we'll enjoy continuing to work here.
We have a public hearing open up here, I think,
Well, I say that before 9 o'clock.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got 9B2, right? The management employee contract for the deputy fire chief.
No, what about 9C?
Did I miss 9C? Oh, I got them out of order. Sorry.
No, it's not.
No.
B comes before
No,
C.
B comes
So we're
before
doing the
C.
police stuff first, and then.
Last time I did the,
I mean, is it something that you want to, because you're going to recuse yourself?
I'm
you
going to
wanna-
recuse myself from
I don't have an,
9B2.
I don't have an issue with doing 9C1 first, if that helps.
Well, in either way, I'm gonna
Someone
have
have
to
dozen
recuse
of the
myself.
others.
He's gotta,
and come back.
just come back, yeah.
Let's keep it in order. Okay, so we'll go with 9B2 then.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm going to recuse myself from item 9B2 for reasons previously stated in my disclosure forms and copy of the email for the record. that was sent to you and Keith Berger.
Thank you.
I will be exiting the room.
Okay, very good. Okay, we're gonna talk about the deputy fire chief. Chief? Come on down. Chief and...
As we've spoken in the last week, the
deputy here?
proposal.
Back there, come on up
Wait,
front.
the deputy
No, not yet, not yet. Designee.
Yeah. Yeah.
I apologize for jumping the gun.
Yeah, nothing's guaranteed.
Put forward the proposal at the last meeting that was approved for a deputy chief. Basically, I used the process to get to this position by reviewing all of the documentation that was going through on the chief's process. So, in using that, it made sense to have, the best candidate for the position is Steele McCurdy. And moving forward, we have proposed a contract, and that was brought forward. And Steele is in agreement with that. So, that's up to you.
Right, you had your policy vote on January 28th, where we said that the position of fire captain, which is union, would and was the second in command, that second in command would now become the non-union deputy fire chief.
Reallocation process.
Right, with the, we're redefining what that second in command position is. And your vote and the strong chief statute that we're operating under condition or allow for the Board of Selectmen's approval of the terms and conditions of the appointment that the fire chief makes, of the compensation, rather, for those appointed by the fire chief. So along those lines, Labor Council has drafted the form of a employment agreement that you see here. In appropriate places, it has parroted the form of the deputy police chief contract, and others it mirrors either what the language is and what the benefit is that's currently enjoyed by the incumbent. Yeah, so that all of those things are codified here and to the agreement of the appointing authority, fire chief, and the employee, the deputy. So that's brought tonight for the Board of Selectmen's approval. It's consistent with the classification and compensation plan that you've approved for other positions.
Board members, any comments?
No, I think we had this discussion already. Yeah. Just formalizing.
Okay, we'll look for a motion then.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 48, subsection 42, to approve and authorize execution of an employment agreement with Deputy Fire Chief Steele McCurdy for the period of February 11, 2013 through June 30th, 2013 at grade 12, step 1, $70,783.20, with a one-year extension for the period of July 1st, 2013 through June 30th, 2014 at grade 12, step 2.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Congratulations.
That's the wires.
I'll go around.
Congratulations.
First official act.
Get
injured on the wires.
I was gonna say, do you have to take that off? Is that out of uniform now? with
Yeah, it
appropriate
is.
insignia?
Way about you, because I've been
All right.
coughing.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
I just assume not get sick. I appreciate that. Still, thank you. Thank you. Oh, over the table.
Is this where his father should hug him too?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, no, that's not how we work.
That's not how you roll. Thank you, thanks.
All right, thanks.
I need some water, go ahead.
You okay?
Yeah.
Okay, we got staffing vacancy reviews. Police department and fire department. It is warm in here tonight, isn't it? Okay. Thought it was me for a minute. Maybe I was getting your cold or something over here.
Hot flashes.
All right. Keith?
We have two staffing vacancy review requests. The first in order here is from the police department, and Deputy King is here tonight to talk about this. We have vacancies which have arisen for a patrol officer and a communications officer.
First one is in the control center on the dispatch desk. The dispatch supervisor, Tim Demas, who's been with the department for 25 years, is retiring. Is give us an official letter that he'll be retiring the end of May 31st. So we've got to obviously get him replaced. A little background on the desk, there's only 5 people who work the desk. Without Tim on the desk, there's open shifts that have to be filled with overtime every week. So the reason we're trying to do this now is we'll get the person in and trained, just like we did with Sergeant Romney with the new trainees who were in the academy before Sergeant Romney actually retired. So there'll be a seamless transition. When Tim retires, the other person hopefully will be ready for the desk and up and running, and won't be loaded with overtime on the desk. It is within the it is both the 13 and 14 budget. Small savings. Some of that will be obviously eaten up this year, or will all be eaten up because we're going to have an extra employee for a period of time until Tim actually leaves. Some of that money will come from the 911 grants and other things to get that individual up and trained. So we're asking to replace that position. I've checked obviously with Bonnie, and it fits within the budget, and it's a budgeted position within the health and welfare. That's the first one. Second one, Patrolman Robert Balicki is leaving the department after 10 and a half years with us. He's going to the town of Hopkinton.
Does he live down that way?
No, actually, he lives in Air currently right now, but he made a decision to move to go to Hopkinton. Again, position bring the day shift currently where he is down to just 2 officers. Obviously, with vacations, other things, it would require a lot of overtime, and also runs the day shift short. The period in between the hiring and now, we're going to do a little bit of creative stuff. We're going to pull the SRO, 1 or 2, one day here, one day there. Detective Patterson, obviously that puts a problem, some strain on the Detective Bureau, but it gets us 4 months, and it gives us plenty of time to vet. Where you've got 2 hiring processes going at once for pretty important positions, obviously. And also, too, as you know, the budget this year has been placed under a lot of strain. We had an employee out for 7 weeks on sick leave due to a fairly serious condition. Also, the hurricanes and other things have put some stress on it. So by doing this, we're hoping to save a little money that way to draw Peter to pay Paul, pay the overtime account, basically, is what's going to happen this year. So we're hoping that we minimize us having to go back to the FinCom looking for some overtime funds at some point. So what we're looking for is permission to rehire both positions and to advertise and get those positions underway. The process for the dispatcher would be advertising for the month. We'll do a review of our resumes. Then we'll do a oral board, or a couple of separate oral boards with both the police and fire department and dispatch personnel. And then we'll bring a candidate forward to the board for approval. And basically the same with the patrolman candidates, resumes, background investigations, a dual set, probably even a tri-set of interview boards. The final interview board would be with typically myself, the chief, and the deputy town administrator. Sorry, had to.
Do we have any internal candidates that?
Not currently, no. We're currently out. We're in the process right now of also running reserve interview process. As you remember, you authorized us back in the fall. We've been collecting resumes and just trying to get, with the shortages, we've been kind of holding back a little bit on that right now. So no, we don't. Our intent with this is to also make a list, hopefully, have it good for a year, so that if anything does arise over the next year, we can just go right back and look at that list.
Do you have a date for the next academy?
Next academy starts June 1st, but we are planning on advertising on this one for academy trained personnel. There are a bunch of self-sponsors out there that we know are quality, and we've also been approached by a number of quality candidates that we know the people already.
Good.
So we know there's some academy trained interest, and I was just told tonight by this is also some trained interest in the control center. So we're hoping to steal someone on that and also on the other side.
That's my question.
Question about the process. Did you give any consideration to using a citizen as part of the initial interview process?
Yep, we've talked about it, it's in my plan. We're still kind of firming all this up. This kind of caught us a little bit by surprise with Officer Balecki, to be honest with you. So I mean, I'm certainly not adverse to that at all. And I know that the chief is not either. So we certainly can make that part of the plan. We have done that in the past.
So we have a lot of very qualified citizens in this town for something like that, for that role.
Board members, comments, thoughts?
I'll make a motion. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to grant the police chief's request on the staffing vacancy review policy to fill the following full-time benefited position. 1 police patrol officer and 1 dispatch communication officer.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, chief.
Who wants that?
I think he's enjoying his role as outgoing chief. 2 more days.
You added 2 days to your retirement date. All right, let's move on here. Firefighter EMT. Chief Wadzinski.
Lindsay McLaughlin has been with us for about 5 years. She has informed us that she is going to Concord. She's accepting my position. At this time, we'd like to run a process to fill her vacancy. Without that position, it's going to, she's 1 of 4 in the rotation that fills the 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. day shifts. If we weren't able to fill that position, it'd be an extensive amount of overtime that we'll be paying to continue to do that. For the interim, we're hoping to fill that position with potentially some call members, and definitely we will be using some overtime for that position as well. We'd like to go forward and establish fill her position, well, advertise for her position, I should say, from within. We have approximately 14 members that have expressed some interest in running for, going for a full-time position with the department. At the same time as looking to fill her position, we would actually create a list for the potential of the July 1st increase in staffing. The list does not guarantee any hiring or, any, doesn't guarantee anything. It's just a list. It's established for, will be established for 1 year. It's very common practice for fire departments to do that when they run the process. That way they have some viable candidates and they, hold on to that for a year. At the end of the 1 year, the list just dissolves.
Are you gonna follow the same process?
As far as process,
And all that stuff?
we'd have a written test. We'd have 2 interviews. First interview process would be with the on-call officers of the department, as well as Jimmy Collette from the highway department. He is going to participate with that. And then the final interview would be with the deputy chief, myself, and Joe Gaffney. And then we would make a decision on the second interview and establish a recommendation list of that.
And how are we set financially? Is this gonna be any type of savings on the neutral?
It's pretty neutral at this point because while the new employee would come in at a lower rate, we've got to fill shifts and the fire department's been dealing with a lot of issues within coverage for the last year, so.
There's been, people out on injuries and one or out on leave, so work already pretty extensively, and the snowstorm, the blizzard, definitely dipping into the overtime account quite heavily right now.
But by not filling this, you're only going to incur more, so.
That makes sense. I was thinking with the new hire and the existing person's been there for 10 years.
Right.
Some sort of saving.
Board members, any questions? Look for a motion.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to grant the fire chief's request under the staffing vacancy review policy to fill 1 full-time benefited firefighter EMT position.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we're a little bit behind. All right, 10A1. Rotary Club.
Looks like we got a bunch of the Rotary Clubs here.
Rotarians here.
Evening, gentlemen. Paul Lavelle, 94 Grist Mill. And this evening, I'm standing before you in my capacity as president of the Rotary Club of Littleton. Rotary is an international service organization of over 1.2 million members worldwide. And this evening, I have some members with me. To my left, Dick Anderson. And to my right, Dave Erickson, Kyle Bryant, and our own superintendent, Kelly Clenchy. I got everybody that's members with us tonight. You have before you a proposal for shelter box on the common, as we're calling it. I can go as deep as you want in a presentation of sorts. You've had the opportunity to read the concept paper that I presented for you. You can answer questions, and I'll proceed any way you like at this point.
I guess my first question is can we allow this on the common? What we do?
Yeah, if you
Legally,
vote,
can we
yeah,
allow-
yes, you
we
can,
can
if you
allow
vote
it.
to allow it.
And the purpose of putting this on is for just 7 days?
It would be 7 days on the common,
awareness.
correct. We'd have a Rotarian sleeping in each and every night, and sometimes maybe two, to make sure there's safety issues, if there were any, as far as that goes. It's to raise awareness of the shelter box program. An international program began back in 2001, where people were seeing a need was being fulfilled in many ways for food, medical supplies, such as that, for disaster relief, but shelter wasn't being provided. Tom Henderson, Britt, came up with this idea. The box is roughly 2.5 by 2.5 by 3, 100 pounds, give or take, so it's a small box, but containing inside it is a very heavy-duty tent, cooker, and other supplies, and it even takes it down to a level realizing that there's families involved, and young children most often also, to include a coloring book and some crayons, to address that level of need also in some obviously very tough times, whether it's an earthquake, a tsunami, things that you've seen, the disasters you've seen around the world. Shelter Box and Rotary have responded to those with these shelter boxes, where we send over many, many pallets, and tens of thousands of them being deployed now.
Go back to that size again, too.
That
was the container it was in.
That's a
The
good
tent
box
itself is 12 by 12.
Locker.
The tent expands.
I had the same thought for a while.
I was
You're like suicide, allows you to shrink.
Two people that sleep in a block.
Can't get me in there.
Hopefully that's clarified now.
So what's the size when it's?
The tent is roughly about 8 feet 10, 8 foot 10. It's good size. It can sleep, as they advertise, a large family. So it all depends, if you got a bunch of little children, more people. If you're talking adults, 6 to 7 adults could sleep in this tent.
So no impact on the school system?
No impact on the school system.
Unless you let them live there longer than we do.
We don't anticipate occupy the common.
Which size is going on?
Where were you thinking of putting it on the common? Where would you like to put it on?
Well, in the lodge area, right where the garden club sets up. As you see, we've deconfigured the garden club. Because possible conflicts, certainly town meeting is on the, first off, the dates, 5 through 11 May is proposed, with 6
I
being
was
town
hoping
meeting.
next week, she said we'd be out there.
We talked about that, but some members thought maybe just a little too chilly. And we'd be sharing on Friday and Saturday with the garden club, and we've worked through that with the garden club. So we're happy with that.
Any concerns with the lawn, with it resting on the lawn?
No, in fact, the way we've talked about addressing that is actually moving. The tent is easy enough just to move around so that we don't trample down the lawn and cause it not to grow well during the season. As far as all of the sort of safety issues, no open fires, carry in, carry out, sanitation, toilet facilities is not an issue because a local business has offered the use of their toilet facilities for the person that'd be spending the night. So that sort of sanitation is also taken care of. And the purpose, it's threefold, candor. First off, raise awareness of the program so that more people know about it and are more willing to contribute to the program. Certainly, we want to make it a fundraiser for that program also. And then to increase the footprint, so to speak, of Rotary in the town of Littleton. And certainly aware of some of the things that we already do in town, the Appleman Triathlon as an example, Thanksgiving morning breakfast at the middle school, just to name two of the larger events that we participate in. Certainly contribute a good sum of money to various organizations in town, out of town and national, to include a girls' school in Uganda, Bill did, to our own students here where we do scholarships for the kids. In fact, that Thanksgiving morning breakfast, the proceeds from that do go to the scholarship fund.
Well, have you talked at all with Jimmy Clyde?
What we've done is Keith
Yeah,
facilitated the meeting with all the town
all the
departments.
staff, yeah.
He's had all the staff together, yes, sir.
And staff had identified a number of issues which have been addressed in the final proposal that Rotary has sent.
Do you have any idea how much revenue this is going to raise from a fundraising perspective?
No, we don't, but here's what we're hoping for. Certainly we'll get quite a bit of media attention. Certainly the local press, independent, Lowell Sun, we'd anticipate that. Hopefully, and maybe novelty is not a good word to use, but it's the best one I can think of at the moment, is that perhaps we'll also get the video media, local television stations, perhaps they're now back to the print media, maybe the Globe would feature an article on it also, and try and raise that level of awareness of the program. And that's part of our public relations campaign to go along with this, is to contact various media outlets such as that.
Have any other Rotary chapters tried this before? In the
I'm
state?
only aware of one, and it was in England.
Okay.
And that's where I got the idea, no candor. Monthly magazine, as you imagine, most organizations have a monthly magazine. Ours is called Ontarian. And in the magazine was a story about a Brit. Last year, he did do it during the winter, out on his time common, and he did it by himself. So.
I would expect, ex-military guy out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, survival techniques.
That's it. And I,
President of the club was willing to do it. I don't
And
think
the
any-
president, right.
I don't think anybody else in the club was willing to join him in the middle of winter.
So, you got to contend with black flies, I guess. So
Anything you're going on during the day, any type of lessons or not necessarily lectures, you're just gonna talk to people as they approach?
that's exactly it. So who will be there will be able to speak certainly to the program itself, Rotary in general, programs that have been assisted in the past, and be able to speak that. To actually set up class, so to speak, and be teaching anything, no. That's, at least that's not contemplated at this time.
And do you plan on this being an annual event?
Let's see how this first one goes.
Okay.
So this will be the first annual, we'll see if there's a second annual.
My only concern is safety. I mean, it is Littleton, you're in the middle of the common, but there should be, obviously, so the person will have a cell phone, direct contact to police, fire, anybody like that. That's all.
Ready to make a motion? Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the request of the Littleton Rotary Club to deploy a shelter box on Littleton Common from Sunday to Saturday, May 5th to the 11th, 2013, to raise awareness about the fundraising shelter box program and the Littleton Rotary Club.
Moving and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yes, there's a schedule, who's out
And
what
our
night?
invitation remains open to you all to join Rotary.
Or join us at the shelter box.
Take a shift. I'll come over, tip it over.
Just drive by.
Not with me in it, buddy. You'll have to pick one of the other Rotarians.
I'll say hello.
You don't want to give us an excuse.
My weight will prevent that.
I want to know when Avello's staying in there. That's
I want the
all.
schedule.
Yeah, we need the schedule. We gotta send it
The
to
schedule.
I don't know, sir. I think Selectman Carr might decide to TP the building.
If you can't stop, please hold.
About beers. You're welcome to drop by.
Oh, believe me.
We'll give you more information.
Thank you. Any division? All right. We need a quick little recess here, so that bio break for a few people.
I've never been able to do this.
Get close.
That's not what we're talking
Okay, so next up is 15 Great Road. We're just gonna wait for Selectmen Doucette to come back for a bio break, and then we'll get started. And that's our last item on the agenda tonight.
On a private road. Our driveways across.
I had mine earlier. Last one.
I had mine earlier and I had mine this month.
It's one of the ones that lingers, huh?
It came back.
Yeah.
had that.
I was very interested that they said possibly 2 in the tent. I think they might be selling the place for They said, I want to see how it goes this year. I want to see what they say when they start going to that. Brushing their teeth on that.
Sit upright and sleep upright for a month.
That'll be up.
What do I gotta say? Just me?
That's right. Yeah, they're supposed to sleep 10. On their website. You should go on their website. It's pretty interesting, actually, yeah.
Sign and done.
I don't wait till you don't belong. I don't have to wait till I'm
All right. All right, let's get this moving. Okay, we're back in session here, 15 Great Road Host Community Agreement. For those of you who missed public input, it was determined by the board here that we will allow public comment. Doesn't mean that we're opening up the public hearing, but we will allow for public comment. So let's get right back into this. Mr. Bergman, if you can give us an update as to where we left off last week.
Yeah, there is a final form of the proposed host community agreement that is, the proposal is exchanged between town council and the developer. The form that you have tonight, although I'd say you received an electronic copy of it, is the final form as presented by the developer, and it does contain the language which would assure that Littleton stays above the 10% goal as a result of any conversion from rental to ownership that may result for the units that are the subject of the 15 Great Road application. As we discussed last week, the town is responsible for all the other units, on the subsidized housing inventory. That is, there are 291 there. It's not Omni's responsibility to keep those affordable. That's our responsibility.
Right.
And assuming that those 291 stay there, and given joint assumptions that we're making about approximately 3,900 housing units as being our estimate of the 2020 federal census, that given those parameters, that the agreement would keep us above 10%. That is, if there's a subsequent conversion of some of the units from rental, all of which count towards the subsidized housing inventory now, to ownership, where only the affordable ones would count. That the count of units on the subsidized housing inventory would be at the level needed to keep us at 10%, and that agreement, that provision is good through January 1, 2031. Which
means it carries us essentially until.
It carries us through two decades, really.
Until the 2040 census.
No.
Until the 2030 census.
So the numbers of the 2030 census are released.
Right, that the agreement essentially preserves our best estimate of what the 2020 census is going to be. And that 2020 census figure is good until the 2030 census is certified. So we're using a date of January 1, 2031 as when we would see that date come. Based on current numbers, that means that of the 190 units that are contained in the 15 Great Road 40B project, that if nothing else changes, then it would be 100 units that we would need to keep us at 10%. So that requirement for 100 units would be in place through, assuming nothing else changes, through 2031. At which point, the obligation is, assuming nothing changes in the 40B program, that it would be, say, 25% of the total units would need to be affordable if it were owner occupied, which is 48 units. So the way that that this language delivers on keeping us at 10% rather through 2031 is by the agreement on what the projected 2020 census figure would be, on the recognition that it's the town's obligation to make sure that everyone else's subsidized housing unit, that is all the non-Omni subsidized housing units, remain in the inventory. And that with that, the agreement would give us that essentially would make the town immune from unfriendly 40Bs for the next generation.
And you folks have reviewed that language, and at this point, are we in agreement with Mr. Hill? Are we in agreement with what we have on the table?
I have signed copies here.
And you've reviewed those signed copies?
Yeah, so I think it's now up to the board to decide. We exchanged proposals. What we were trying to get was, so if you look at the agreement this way, right now, and as long as it's a rental project and all laws remain the same, you get to count 190 units towards your inventory. That's great. The concern is, what if they change to a for sale project, and then we only get to count the those units that are actually affordable towards our count. All right. So what we wanted to so what we were trying to get into the agreement was 100 is as low as you're going to go. That's the bottom line. We want you to keep 100. They were unwilling to do that. What they're saying is, we're going to keep you at your 10%. So that's where you are, and we won't let you fall below 10%, but if for some reason you add affordable units elsewhere, we can drop down, still keeping you at your 10%. On whatever it is, January 1st or June 1st, 2031, they're only obligated to have whatever the state requires them as affordable units. So I think we have, you do have the protection in place for the next almost 20 years, call it 18 years or 17 years. What the town needs to do if they accept this agreement is follow along, and if there's a conversion of this from rental to for sale, it should send off the bells that, okay, so we need to start doing some planning so we can keep ourselves above that 10%, going beyond 2031. But it does lock you in for the next 17 years.
I think the discussion last week of, looking at our bylaws for the zoning bylaws, right, to really review that bylaw to say any big developments over X have 10% of the development as affordable, so we can build that into it.
And we can look at those things too. The only thing about what is the final version of the agreement that's being offered to you, there's no incentive for the town to go and create a single additional 40B unit because it relieves this developer of
only if it goes out of perpetuity.
Yeah, but we need to do proactive planning for affordable housing for any number of reasons, including because it's good public policy, including because some of those 291 units might fall off for for some reason, or because the total denominator, the 2020 census, or certainly the 2030 census, could be larger than we think. So even if we got to count all on these units, they wouldn't be enough to get us to 10%. So plenty of obligations that we would need to fulfill in any event to make sure we stay above 10%. But we have this agreement, which is, I don't know, the word unprecedented is thrown around, but I think this may qualify as a very unique agreement that we would have to assure that we stay above 10% for a long, long time.
Board members, any other thoughts, comments?
I know one concern that's been brought up several times is this, there's a term in here, there's a paragraph in here saying that we will support or defend Omni. Can you explain that? Because my understanding is that it's only under one unique circumstance. It's when we're both jointly sued, and it is only support, it's not payment. And when I hear support, I assume that's sharing documents and sharing information, working together in a common defense. It doesn't mean that we're paying their defense attorneys.
That's correct. So, right, so what needs to happen is that we, some board in Littleton is sued along with Omni. And the issue in that suit is their ability to connect to the wastewater treatment facility properties outside of the 40B. That's the specific issues.
So there's two issues. So there's two things that'll trip that.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's going to be one that we're both named in the suit, and it's regarding the connection to the wastewater treatment facility.
Right. So
Okay.
remember, the only way this agreement is still in place after the ZBA makes their decision is if the ZBA says, yes, we're not going to restrict the use of the wastewater treatment facility to the 40B. So first the ZBA takes that action, the host community agreement remains in effect. Those two things happen. So we're there to support them, but essentially what support means is we're gonna stand up and say, yes, we think this is legal. And we've already said that. I said that in a letter 6 months ago, that if the ZBA takes that action, I think they have every right to connect those units or those properties outside of the 40B to the wastewater treatment facility in the 40B. So it might look like scary language. I think it's only gonna happen, A, in very limited circumstances, and B, we're not taking a position that we haven't already taken.
And it's not a financial commitment. I think that's the big thing that scares everybody. It looks like we're going to pay for Omni's attorneys. Their
Yeah, we're not
defense.
gonna pay for Omni's attorneys. I
Right.
think what they're gonna be looking for us to say is, the zoning enforcement officer and town council maybe agrees that this is true.
Okay.
We've already said that this is true.
Can I get it before you?
Sure.
I just want something clarified.
Sure.
The email you sent this afternoon to Keith, is that exactly the same as what's here?
No, it's not.
It's a
No,
modified document from.
it's a modified document largely in section 14,
You
I
want to see it?
think.
I have it printed, the one that came up this afternoon. Okay.
I started looking at it, but I didn't have time, I had to come here
Yeah,
tonight
yeah.
to do it. It was sent.
But the biggest change is that Article
I didn't get it
14.
till like after 5.
Yeah, the biggest change is Article 14, and it's all right here. If we go flip through it, I can continue talking if you want to look at that.
And I have red lines and cleans, the same thing.
Well, I sort of went through it, and I saw where the stuff was, but I didn't really have time to study what I thought that meant. That's only, I just wanted to make sure that if it was one and the same, that's fine. Okay. That's a point of clarification, I just wanted.
And I just want to state there's a couple things I don't like about this, but even though we're at beyond the 11th hour, I think it's worth just mentioning. I just want to mention where I stand on this. The $100,000 that is being requested, negotiated, or whatever you want to say by the planning board for what they define as the land not being sufficiently defined as good conservation land, that $100,000 is in this. I don't like it being in this because it makes it look like we're supporting that, and maybe we are, but I don't like it. But again, at the 11th hour, I'm not gonna change it, and it does clearly state in 2 paragraphs that that's the planning board's requirement and not so much ours. So I'm just objecting to that, but I don't think it's worth throwing out the whole document to that. I also have said from the beginning, I don't like how the mitigation is tied to the 40A lots and how it's, makes it look like we're giving them a permit for that, for the ability to tie in, when they have the ability to tie in. That's the way the mitigation is spelled out now, and that's the only way we're gonna get it. I would rather see it, the mitigation paid out through the 40B every time they get a building permit, they're required to pay something, but again, I want to express my objection, not worth throwing out the whole document just for that, but those are 2 major points that I object to. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Your position on the 40, reference the wording to the 40A connecting to the 40B, can you go through that again?
I believe, from reviewing this a couple times, it appears that it could state that it could be interpreted that the reason we're getting the mitigation is because we're allowing them to tie in the 40A. And the 40A connection, I believe, has been demonstrated by our attorneys and by Omni that that is allowed no matter what.
Do you feel that the agreement is endorsing it or allowing it?
I don't think the agreement is doing either. I think the agreement is acknowledging that we're getting paid when these lots are developed. Is it, I hadn't considered that question, so maybe I have to come back to it, but I don't think it's making a decision on whether or not it's allowed. I don't know, I have to read it again.
But we're tying in certain payments to that happening.
The way, the mitigation schedule is based on building permits or occupancy permits for the 48 lots.
So, maybe I can shed some light on this.
Yeah.
Maybe being the operative word. So, ideally, we would have asked for money, you get your 40B permit, give us
Right.
mitigation money, and we'll all go away, and we don't need this long, complex document. But that was not going to happen in
Right.
this case. So, what was negotiated was, if you think of a lump sum up front, we couldn't get that, so this is payments made over time tied to specific events. And Sherry Gould, who I think did a really wonderful job negotiating this. Anyways, it was her idea that, listen, there's a sense that you're getting a bonus by being able to tie to the 40A lots to the 40B treatment facility. We want you to pay for those. And so that's why it's in there. And, whether or not they can or can't is a matter of great debate.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's really good case law one way or the other. So this seemed like the best path.
Right. And the way I look at it, and maybe it's the way I have to spin it in order to hold my nose and sign this, is that we need mitigation. This is the way it's paid out. And that's what I have to suck up. Whether or not it endorses or says that we are allowing them to tie in, I don't think, see, I already put that to bed because we already have other sewer treatment plants in town that connect multiple lots. So ergo, it's allowed in my mind.
And
That's
this
where I've
board,
gotten to.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
This board is not allowing or disallowing.
Okay,
You
thank
guys
you.
are basically money collectors
Okay.
in this agreement.
And we're getting a pretty big insurance policy for the town of Littleton.
Right.
Keeping that 10%, so we don't have to deal with this type of a project over the course of the next 17 years.
Yep.
I don't think we should be, and I don't want to use your term, but it's your appropriate term, we shouldn't be in a position to hold our nose. And, if it's not ready, it's not ready.
Correct.
And we should continue to pursue making it ready. I've thought long and hard about this, and, the choice of, do we have a choice, do we not have a choice? I find myself in a similar position where there's some parts that make me terribly uncomfortable. And my only solution to that is we keep going back until we get all those things worked out.
Can I finish then?
I
Go to
agree
yours?
with Ted, on his points, maybe we don't see it exactly the same way, but the point is pretty much the same. The whole connection, the 48 to the 40B bothers me.
That's not, this is not authorizing it, Alex. This doesn't authorize any of it.
Alex?
I understand that, and that's been made very clear. But we are accepting payment for recognizing that it's gonna happen. And I'm just not sure that we need to make that recognition, because we have two very capable lawyers sitting in the room that can argue very effectively on either side of this. And I want to go to something else. Tom, you said that you have taken the position that it's legal. You have taken the position, the town has not. And you have advised us that you think it's legal. But none of our boards, none of the selectmen, nobody else has said, we think it's legal. You've given us your best advice.
Exactly. I have given you my best advice, and my best advice doesn't come with a guarantee in this situation, but.
And it's not yet the position of the town.
But I just want to.
Because no board has voted on it saying.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize that my advice and my call on this is that it's the ZBA's decision to make.
Alex, can I just jump in and finish my thoughts, and then I'll try to stay quiet after this,
Okay,
but,
sorry. I just got going.
but I do feel it's allowed, because basically we do have two, as I said, we have two sewer treatment plants with multiple lots signed up, so I do feel that it would be allowed, and it would be a losing battle in court. As far as, whether or not to sign this now, this has been going on for a long time, and coming in at this point, even though I don't like these terms, I don't feel that it's worth going back to the negotiating table and starting anything else. There's a lot of people who have put a lot of work into this, and I don't want to discount that, and I don't want to undo it, and therefore, at this hour, based on the fact that I feel this is the best we're going to do, we are going to get some mitigation, is one point that I like, and I do also like that we have the guarantee of the 10% through early 2031, 32. So that's why, provided, town council saying everything that's been in there, that we discussed been there, I think, the time is now, or at least very soon. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll try to keep quiet.
No, I understand,
Yeah.
I fully understand your position. Shouldn't be a surprise, I don't really agree, but my position's not the same, not that I don't agree with you. But, I look back here, and this started as an unfriendly 40B. Every one of us reacted the same way.
They all do.
What is this? Oh my God.
Tell me when it started
This
as
is gonna
friendly.
turn this town upside down. That was unanimous reaction. And now we've managed to work ourselves to the point where, okay, this is the best we can do. And maybe it is. Maybe it is the best we can do. I don't know. But it's not a friendly 40B. And what this agreement does is makes it a more friendly 40B. Makes the economics of the project more viable for the building of a 40B that we all admit started out as not a friendly 40B. Aren't we then making it a friendly 40B?
The economics of the 40B has nothing to do with the town, has nothing to do with the ZBA, has nothing to do with the Board of Selectmen or the Planning Board. That's where they go to the state, and they put all their financials in front of the State Housing Authority to say, I want to do this, here are my economics. They're the ones that make the decision. So for you to say to make this is when they went before the state for this plan, they didn't have any of this in front of them. So their financials are based on the 40B project, period.
No, I think you misinterpret what I said.
Okay? Did you
So
not
let
just
me-
say that
let-
this,
let me
did you
try
just
this
not
again.
say that this agreement makes it financially viable for the 40B?
Omni is in business to make money. This is a business venture for them to make
Okay.
money. Okay. We are in business to protect the town and do the best interests of the town. In some cases, those will be the same things, in some cases, they won't be the same thing. But what we should not be in the business of is making this more economically viable for Omni. And when we see Omni come and take on this rather elaborate, we're gonna add these lots and we're gonna get easements across the roads, There's one reason for that, and that reason is economics. And to make this project work. And when we sign on here, we're signing on to their economics. And that I'm uncomfortable with, because we all started at the same point. This isn't what we want for Littleton.
Well, we signed.
And if
when
they
this-
were
when
to
this
go
document's
away, just let me finish my thought here a second. If they were to go away and say, you guys are jerks, we can't make any money in Littleton, and they took off on us, would we not then be given an opportunity to work with developers who won't be putting 200 units in, that we may only want to put 100 units in, and that sort of thing, where we actually gain control back of our destiny and of our affordable housing?
Under 10%, we have no control. Under 10%, please, trying to make a comment here. Under 10%, we have no control, Alex. You understand that? That's why it's so important for this document to get us to 10%. Because then we are in
can choose
control.
to work with somebody. We
don't.
can
No, we
choose not to
don't.
work with somebody.
Can someone educate him, tell him that 10% is?
I think I probably am pretty well educated in this, Mr. Carr.
10% is the limit. You need to be at 10% to have control.
I understand
We are not
that.
at, okay, so you can't say that.
So because we are
every
10%,
we are in
then we have
control.
no right
We
to
can say
expect
no.
anything.
We can say no.
We can't work with developers, we
We
can't
can
do
say
any of this
no.
stuff. It's exactly what you're doing right now, is working with the developer.
Alex, if I could, I mean, we've gone through this with the Village on the Common, went bankrupt. We had the issue out on Beaverbrook Road, another 40B, went bankrupt, someone else came in and made it work. I think we had another one, if I'm not mistaken, up on Newtown Road that we had some issues with. Every one of these projects that come before us, come before the town, are not town friendly, they never have been. So, is it, and I agree.
No, I'm not talking about town funding.
Friendly,
I'm
town friendly.
Okay.
Town friendly. So my thoughts are with this insurance policy that's on top of this, that gives us the extra leverage to say, we're done with 40Bs. We don't have to entertain these type of things anymore unless we choose to do so. Isn't that worth something to the town? As a town as a whole, is that not worth something to the town?
But I'm theorizing here, let's say that they go away, okay, they decide they can't make it work here.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
Well, that's subject to all sorts of opinions, and none of us has the answer. They might have the answer, but we don't. But wouldn't we then take the opportunity to do some of the proactive stuff we've just been talking about? And work with 40B people to get to our 10% in a way that's a little more liking to the townspeople.
Well, I don't think that's a bad dream, but I don't know that that could be reality. Because developers got their own, I mean, serving on the planning board for 6 years, saw an awful lot of developers come before us. It's pretty difficult to tell them what to do. Some will.
I'm not talking about telling them what to
So
do.
what if Omni goes away and something worse comes in?
Right, there you go. And we don't get
What
the
if
10, and we don't get the 10%
Goes away,
protection.
using your scenario that Omni goes away, what if something worse comes in?
That's entirely possible. Shame on us if we don't immediately go into a planning mode to try to address the 10%.
Yes, we can try to address that 10%, but that 10% is how many units? It's 40,
100.
About 100, right?
right, for today.
Gets us to the 10%.
Well, it depends, if it's rental or if
Yes,
it's
it's
for
less, it's
sale.
less than 100, but it's more units than we could possibly get started on our own before the
next
next
Omni
40B
comes in, yeah.
developer comes swooping down on us. To which neighborhood, we don't know.
If I can,
Go ahead, Joe.
like you said, Alex, no one wanted this at all, and I agree with that. But while we have a document here that basically, we're not signing on to the financial aspects or anything like that. We have a document that works outside of what the ZBA does, and it gives us a guarantee that you have some kind of mitigation that's going to take place that we wouldn't have without this. And it's a recorded deed they have to follow. And then it's, like they said, it guarantees the 10%. That's all this document does. We're not deciding the 40A, the 40B, we're not deciding the septic, that doesn't come under our thing. We're just signing a document that gives the town some guarantees in the future. that some money is gonna come in, and the 10% is guaranteed till 2031.
Protection.
Yeah, and it's,
And, you know, I think we keep saying, we didn't like this, we didn't like this. I don't like this project now. I'm fearful that in 5 years, we're gonna have trailers sitting right outside our brand-new middle school. But we're not gonna stop this by not signing this.
And we're not gonna approve anything by signing this.
It's an insurance policy.
It's an insurance policy. It's doing the right thing for the town, it's protecting the town.
It's an insurance policy on both parties, for both
Yeah.
parties.
That's why it's called an
For
agreement.
us, and it's an insurance policy to them, that they will meet their economic viability.
That's why it's, well, I don't disagree with that, but I think this is called an agreement. That means both people have to agree with. So, yeah, it does have to benefit them in some manner, and it has to benefit the town. That's, I'm not gonna convince you, I guess, I'm just following up with your comments, but I'll try harder to be
That's the
quiet.
whole purpose of deliberation.
Yeah.
This is healthy. Any other discussion from the board before I open up to the budget?
Just to correct, I think we're 54 units short.
54 units, however, if you put a traditional
Based on the
40B,
2010
and what is it, 10 to 25%?
Based on the 2010 census denominator.
Yeah.
And it'll change again.
It's lower. That's why we were projecting higher towards 100, based on
But it'd have to be
what 2020
50,
is gonna be.
to get us to 2020, it'd have to be 54
Yeah.
for rent units.
Well, what
not-
we
not-
said before in one of the presentations a couple of weeks ago is that if this 190-unit project were an ownership project and not rental, the resulting 48 units that count on the subsidized housing inventory would not bring us to
Correct.
10%. It would bring us to 9.8 or 9%.
We'd still be dealing with them.
And we'd still be open, we'd still be prey to the next 40B developer.
And the 40B, as we're learning in this, they don't have to, they can bring you to whatever number they want. So this is, however many units here, 190 units. There's nothing stopping, if they go away, someone coming in and saying, well, 300 units. As long as you're at that, as long as you're 1/100th of a percentage point below that 10%, somebody can come in and blow in as many 40B units. There's nothing in the statute, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah,
that
no,
says, is there?
For a town like Littleton, I think they're capped at 200.
Yeah.
200.
200, okay, all right, but
200
it's
is the
still-
number, but 200 is why there's a
All right.
200 proposed for Boxborough, 200 for Westford. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the state of.
But even if we bring it up to that 9.8, 9.9, someone
see
can come in
another
and bring it in
200.
200. Someone can come in and bring it in 200.
Even though you're 6 short, you could see another.
Yeah, all right, so it's not more, okay.
Okay, board members, I'm gonna open this up for public comments. Mr. Del Piore, name,
Jerry Del
address.
Piore, New Estate, Jerry Del Piore, New Estate Road. First of all, I agree with Alex, I agree with this board. 40B stinks, and there's nothing we can do about it. The state lets developers run roughshod over this town and any other town. Having said that, we have a choice here. As I see it, the big issue left is, are they allowed by right to connect the 48 of the 40B under wastewater plants? I'd like to pose,
Over and over and over.
I'd like to ask one question from a zoning standpoint. It's clear from things like our aquifer zoning that zoning can set limits on septic systems and wastewater above and beyond what state DEP allows. And I think the million-dollar question, maybe literally, is, under our current zoning, is a wastewater plant allowed by right in a residential zone? A lot of these other multi-lot facilities, as I understand them, are all on commercial property.
No pond.
No pond.
But that's not
Or
our
municipal.
municipal.
Commercial municipal.
But it's residential.
It is residential. Mill Pond's residential.
But is that, yeah, but is that municipally owned, is that facility municipally owned or privately owned?
Private.
40B, but no 48 connected. That's one of the 4 examples.
Yeah. And I think if town council and/or our zoning officer could perhaps give a little guidance in that area, that seems to me the only potential sticking point. Of course, the ZBA, through a waiver or use variance, can just wipe that right off the table.
Once again, we're not approving anything.
Yeah, Jerry, I think it's a question that you want to have answered about the zoning board, about the zoning. The problem is, you know, I don't want to be sarcastic, but we're not the zoning board.
I know that.
So even if it is a zoning issue, whether or not it's allowed by right, it wouldn't be on our table anyway,
I'm
so.
not asking you guys
Yeah.
to look into it, I see, we have a
Yeah.
planning board member of.
Yeah.
I'd like to speak anyway.
Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah, it's a little bit time since.
Name and address for the
Sure,
record.
Don McIver, 43 Foster Street. Not speaking for the planning board, but on the planning board, not speaking for Board of Health, but on the Board of Health. And I'd like to thank you for allowing people to address things, public hearing, no public hearing. It's problem solving. It's a difficult problem. It's a complex project. So thank you for that. And this, a lot of people worked hard on it. I know people get upset. In fact, the last hearing, I just got up and wanted to ask some questions, and then all hell broke loose. Mainly because I said, well, why not read the planning board letter, which I was hoping it could be on the website, but I don't see it there. So I did have some questions based upon some of the new information that had actually come through last time, because you want new information, which was quite reasonable. And there was a presentation by Omni. One of the things that Omni has said there, I think there are 4 sites in town with a wastewater treatment facility. That got raised again here. And in one case, it was the high school. I wrote the permit for that, and even though the state did for 10,000 gallons and so on, and that was municipal use, and there's a lot of latitude for municipal use. And in fact, with the town council, Judy Pickett at that time, sat down, wrote guidance, giving more latitude for a town project, which makes sense. It's a public interest type thing. The other 2 projects that were mentioned as using wastewater treatment facilities, Sam Park, so you saw the Sam Park presentation earlier this evening, but in that case it's commercial, it's all contiguous, not going on roads and so on. And that actually was a permit that went back to Cisco, it's been renewed a couple of times. So that isn't really similar to what we're seeing here before us. There's also IBM that went way back even before that. And once again, contiguous lot, not going on our streets, all for the same project and commercial. And what we're having before us, and the pond side I figure must be the 4th one, as a 40B, but once again contiguous, altogether allowed to do that, not tied into additional 40A and even other houses that are not on the 40A. So it isn't really equivalent. The last time developers said, oh yes, we have things like this in town, and you know, and Ted has mentioned that we have things like this. I think based upon that, so I tried to clarify as best possible. Just quickly, one thing was mentioned about the $100,000 on the open space. That was actually a special condition under the special permit for the 40A that came before the ZBA, and we said it should be taken out of this document. It should, and also should be cash and upfront as to mitigate for the lack of giving usable open space. And that is not unusual. With Cobb property, not only was there a lot of acreage given, $75,000 in endowment was given, and none of the things was, endangered species area. So, that's not that unusual. What is unusual is not getting any usable open space, an open space plan. Just to go to the second point, that we heard last time that the developer said, well, they didn't need a waiver or variance from the accessory use zoning. So that was a big thing from the letters from the planning board saying that looking at the zoning officer's interpretation, which was handed out along with, or reference, and your board has received that, along with the planning board interpretation, we feel that is an issue. So if the developer's saying they don't need it, why in earth are we giving them a waiver on that? It's, just a good question. Just quickly, the president of this network on our easements of streets, there are, I think, the 4 examples in town I can come up with. This from the Board of Health. This is working with a lot of people who have been on there for like 40 years and stuff. 2 ones in Whitcomb Ave, one's in Dahlia Drive, one's in Cutler. And so some single-family house that has a topography issue, doesn't have enough land, can actually put their septic system across the street, is to build a whole nother network of houses. Also not quite equivalent to what we have with us. And the final thing, which I've heard mentioned here as a real concern for me, I've been on different boards, land use boards, cities, towns, I think 5 municipalities in Massachusetts for 38 years. I've never seen an arrangement where the town says it's going to sue its own citizens if they take objection to the project. Now, step back, from this, what if, some project we feel good about, Sam Park, had that in. I mean, I wouldn't feel comfortable with that. I don't see there's any compelling reason whatsoever. Certainly if a board gets sued, town council and insurance company for the town, which you talked about earlier this evening, will protect them. But in no way would I ever go off on a limb and sign anything like this, and hope you would too. I mean, if that's a showstopper, then that's a showstopper. I can understand why the developer wants that in there, but, people have legitimate reasons. All these lots being developed are alleged going down a pond. There's a reason why they're not developed. They'll be blasting. That will put at risk people who live nearby. They have a legal property right to exercise objection to that, and they have legal standing. And if they want to sue, then so be it. This project should stand on its own. And that should be struck no matter what. I mean, you may disagree about some other things, but that strikes me as the most outrageous thing right there, saying that you'll defend the developer. And no matter what context, how limited you think it is, that just shouldn't belong. Thank you.
Tom Coughlin, Coughlin Road. I'd like to address 2 things. One is the transparency, and the other is the $1.2 million mitigation payment. I call it a bribe, you folks call it a mitigation payment. I think it's peanuts, because if you extrapolate the numbers out, and Paul can back me up, I believe I read that it was $11,900 to educate a student in this town. And if you back it up, because the state gives them $2,000, we're roughly talking $11,000. If you extrapolate out for 19 homes that they want to build in the 40A, we're in the hole in no time. And the other thing I want to talk about is transparency. The ZBA, I've read in the paper that apparently they've been in negotiations with Omni, and they're talking about waivers. I didn't know anything about that. So, I mean, there's some things that you folks in town government are not telling us everything, and I think that should be brought up. Thank you.
Jenna Brownson, Harvard Road. I have a question for the board, perhaps through town council, about the SJC decision on January 8th of this year regarding infectious invalidity. It's a Lunenburg ZBA versus the Housing Appeals Committee, and a portion of that SJC decision discussed this issue, and I'm wondering if there's any teeth in that issue with respect to the Omni project. And I will defer to the attorneys in the room who might have read the decision and have an opinion as to how that would have an effect.
We've talked about that in
Yeah.
the past. Thank you.
Without getting into a long discussion, I have read the decision. I think it's an awful decision. I think it gives 40B developers even more rights than they had before. So I think that towns are not in a great position to begin with, and I think that decision makes things even worse.
Thank you.
Harvey Atkins, Newtown Road. I really think the town has bent over backwards to kind of help this project get underway. I really feel that the 40B is one thing. When you add the 40A, and if they go across and add the houses in there, I really think it's going to add more population, which means the 10% has to be greater. You have to have more units to upgrade to the 10%. And I think the town, if the project can stand on its own as a 40B, I think that would be fine. But I think adding these other extra elements is just making it more complex, and it's going to cost the town in the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Henry Crystal, Gold Lane. I'm an advocate for the established neighborhoods, dynamiting roads that appear. I think which, because of this decision, can appear with ever-increasing frequency. But what really bothers me is a little different area than what we've all been talking here tonight. I'm really concerned about this HCA document. And I asked a question, and Mr. Harrington did answer some of my questions from 2 weeks ago. But there's one that's still open, and I really wanted a precise answer. I may not get it tonight, I appreciate that's okay. But I want to see the statute in the Commonwealth that empowers the selectmen to sign an agreement with a developer to take $1 million to look the other way on zoning laws, which is what you're doing. I want to see the statute. Now, I have searched for the statute. And during my searching for it, which I found nothing, I read hundreds and hundreds of lines in the general laws, I did find that there are some things going on. I found that out here in Palmer now, they just recently, in the last few months, are looking at a casino being proposed to them in the form of an HCA. Now, does this mean that the Board of Selectmen in that town can accept $10 million and make an agreement to have a casino in Palmer? They've been going through this in Foxborough. There are several other towns around in the last, let's say, 5 or 6 years.
I know the answer to that one.
You do, all right.
Well, only because I studied up on that statute.
But
it's because the casino statute uniquely has the provision that the host community agreement envisioned under that, the gaming statute, is subject to only takes effect when it's approved by a ballot question passed by the voters.
Well, that's a reasonable answer. But what bothers me about this is, this should be approved by the town. I mean, the selectmen are entitled to an opinion, but accepting $1 million from a developer to make this deal is, to me, is beyond. And I'm suspicious, some people remember me as the use variance. For 3 years, I argued about use variance. You know what I found out after years and years and years? I found out that use variance appeared in the 50s. And it was sort of obscure, but you had to opt out of it. And when Littleton had its barking dog problem, we were one of the 10% of the towns in Massachusetts that had not opted out of it. So, yes.
Where are we going with this, Henry?
All right, well, now the question is HCA something we should be opting out of? I mean, I don't even know. Why? This is here on this issue. Is it going to come up next week? How does the town protect itself against HCAs? That's my question. Anyway, thank you. I don't know if you understand the question, but...
No, I understand the question. I think there's a couple things here. I mean, obviously, the HCA is, in my opinion, is the document that has 2 elements to it, right? One is the financial piece, the other piece is a 10% guarantee to the town of Littleton. And although I've heard a lot of comments about the financial piece, I haven't heard anybody say anything about this guarantee that's gonna help the town of Littleton, if it's good or bad. I haven't heard that from anybody.
Well, we can take this offline. I'm just saying, to me, this is a real headache in the future, so...
One of the provisions, though, and we had discussed it before, and not to get cute about it, but the HCA is not appealable to the HAC. And there's great value that comes from that, because that which gets appealed to the Housing Appeals Committee goes the way of the developer. And the provisions that are in this agreement with the Board of Selectmen stand on their own. So that having the assurance of maintaining the 10%, if that were in a ZBA decision, it would get tossed out by the time it gets to the Housing Appeals Committee. If it's in this agreement, separate and apart, it's separately enforceable and it will stand. It will withstand.
Other questions?
Thank you, Chris Simone, Surrey Road. Just a couple quick comments. One, I wanted to thank the chairman and Selectman McCurdy for not voting to end the public hearing during the last meeting. I recognize that took probably quite a bit of fortitude and, well, probably don't say it enough, but thank you. So we certainly appreciate that. Second, I just want to make sure I understand the point that Selectman McCurdy, but particularly Selectman Doucette raised earlier. Selectman Doucette used the words that you regret the perception versus the reality, the perception that this agreement enables the connection. Because the reality being that the connection equals more houses, which equals more costs, which equals more tax burden, as this gentleman raised. The reality is terrible, but you regret the perception that this agreement enables that to occur. Did I get that correct?
Somewhat, but somewhat also twisted. I think, or spun.
I don't mean to.
Yeah,
sorry.
no, and I'll clarify.
Thank you.
What I regret is that I don't like the possible perception that this is saying that that the mitigation funds are tied to allowing the connection to the wastewater treatment plant by the 48. Because I believe that the 48 is allowed, I don't know if by right's the right term, but the 48 is allowed to tie into the wastewater treatment plant. So I feel that there is I thought I saw wording in there that almost links the two, that the payments to the connection, and I didn't like that it could be perceived that we are allowing the connection for the mitigation.
I guess the question I have is, I'm having trouble squaring that with the comment, and I may have heard it wrong, and my wife tells me all the time to get my hearing checked, but that Attorney Levine for Omni said in the last hearing, if you take the connection away, the mitigation is gone. It will be on record, so I could be getting it wrong, but the audio for the meeting will get it right. That if you take the connection away, the mitigation's gone. How do you square that comment with that comment?
I don't understand what he means by gone. Does that mean Omni doesn't sign it? That means that it
that-
falls
and that
apart?
meeting
I don't
was
know
just-
what it means by gone.
It was being discussed.
All I
should we
can
not
do,
it?
I'm sorry, Chris, you asked me to speak. You asked me a question. I'm trying to answer it.
Thank you.
So, I don't know what he means by gone. Town council is kind of starting to indicate that he knows what's not, but it just still falls back that, I've stated my case, that I just don't I don't like the fact that the wording in this agreement it could be perceived to tie the mitigation to the connection.
Mhm.
I don't like that because I feel the connection is allowed. Did you have something to add in, Tom?
I guess, I think what he's referring to, if this helps, is if there's two things that need to happen in order for this agreement to remain in effect, and that is that the ZBA needs to give them an approval and the planning board needs to give them an approval. And if they don't, then the HCA is null and void.
The third point's a smaller, easier one, and perhaps it's for Omni through the chair. And that is in regard to the buffering vegetation that was discussed. In the presentation by Omni last week, it was discussed that one of the things they're doing in consideration is a buffer and providing vegetation and spending quite a bit of money, $100,000. But that is between the village and the orchards, the apartments in the 40A. That's approximately 25% of the neighborhood. Whereas the easement lots affect, and non-easement lots affect a much greater percentage. And I'm wondering if there's room for Omni, and maybe this is an easy ask, for them to agree some nominal amount per easement lot of additional, because those weren't contemplated at the time of that agreement, for some sort of vegetation or buffers to protect the rest of the neighbors impacted by what isn't necessarily a problem. It's single-family houses, but nonetheless, it's construction in their current yards. So is there a room for, since there was vegetation and buffers created for a relatively small percentage, is there room to continue that and at least agree some nominal amount per easement lot moving forward?
Want to take that, David?
Sure. It's not a topic for this evening, and it's certainly not a topic for the host community agreement. I will say that if Omni builds those houses, our policy and our track record is that we always meet with the abutters, and we always talk about how we're going to landscape, whether we're building a child care, an apartment complex, or anything else. We are meticulous. We went through a very, very long process with the neighborhood, and we processed all of the requests from the neighborhood, which was a gargantuan project undertaking to meet with, and I would remind the assembly that we first met with the neighbors 2 years ago, so I think 2 years ago this month, before we announced the project to the town or anyone else, we invited the neighbors to a meeting and laid out what we had in mind, got feedback, and the project, I would say the project has been a very friendly 40B. We got the majority of our neighbors to sign an agreement, and we made tremendous financial commitments in order to satisfy the neighbors. The lots, the easement lots, are already existing lots. Having said that, you know, it will be we'll undertake to meet with every single abutter and go through what the building plan is, what the landscape plan is. We always do that. We don't need an agreement to do that. It's just good business practice. It's common courtesy. The last thing in the world we want is problems with any of our neighbors. So I hope I've answered your question.
No, and we can take you on good faith on it. I think we have to. You said you have signed agreements already, but it would be of comfort to the neighbors. And as you know, a lot of them are uncomfortable raising the questions on their own.
Can you face this way, Chris, so we can
Sorry.
hear you?
It would be of comfort to neighbors. Some feel uncomfortable raising these points on their own for the reasons we've discussed. You know, I think it's paragraph 5, page 7, which appears to be a gag order, that simply there's some agreement that there's some nominal amount of money that will be invested. Now, Mr. Hale's made a fair comment. Maybe we leave it at that. That in good faith they'll work with, you know, the neighbors abutting the easement lots, and it will all work out. And so I leave it. You know, obviously it would be nice if there were a little more teeth or formality around there at this juncture. But I recognize it's late and it's a relatively tiny point in a very big project. So I'll defer to the board as far as.
You want to add to that?
So I just wanted to add that, for the record, negotiations with the developer and the town started late. The reason they started late was because it was specific instructions of this board and the town administrator that we don't negotiate unless and until the neighbors reach an agreement. Because I think, from my understanding, you didn't want to cut the legs out from under the neighbors to say, well, we got an agreement, so pony up. So, you know, it's been a long process, but I think that was your thinking, and I think it helped.
Mr. Chairman, can I segue from what David said? Sure. Number one, just
name.
Lou Levine, attorney for Omni. There is no gag order. I, don't like the use of that word. And in fact, at previous meetings of this board, at least one, if not more, of the neighbors who signed the agreement came and had concerns about the easement lots. They spoke, they didn't violate the agreement, etc. So Mrs. Simone is not a signatory to the agreement, okay? But other people came, freely spoke, and they were signatories to the agreement. So I don't want to leave any impression about this gag order routine about the easement lots or anything else like that. The second thing is, as Tom just said, for whatever reasons, we negotiated with the neighbors. And Mr. McCurdy said this was an unfriendly 40B. I didn't go to the initial hearings. I was told about them. From what I was told, I would imagine it wasn't a friendly 40B. But to the credit of the neighbors, to the credit of the developer, over a year and a half, it became a friendly 40B because the developer made multiple concessions. It redesigned the entire project. It provided the neighbors with certain mitigation in terms of landscaping, in terms of restrictions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They were represented by the lawyer who represented the plaintiffs in the Lunenburg case, Dan Hill, who was a very good lawyer, but I think Tom would agree to me, he's an anti-40B person. I don't mean that in any kind of negative way, okay? He's generally taken the position against 40B, okay, in his litigation. And yet he was the one who shepherded that agreement for these neighbors. So in terms of finding someone who was looking under, the pillows to make sure there wasn't anything that we were, tricking anybody, and we were negotiating for a year and a half. So this unfriendly 40B, Mr. McCurdy, became a friendly 40B. It became a friendly 40B, okay, as Tom just said, because this board in the town said, let the neighbors see if they can reach an agreement. And we made tremendous concessions, just the way David has spoken about generally. We'd rather be lovers than warriors. And other developers, and I'm not putting them down, may not have made those concessions. So at the end of the time, you've all seen the neighbors' agreements. There's, I don't know how many signatures on it, 50 or 60 or whatever, or more from the neighbors. It took a lot of work, a lot of consensus, okay? And we only dealt with a committee of the neighbors. So obviously, that committee had to deal with, in a democratic way, their people. So I think this is now a friendly 40B. The comment about us going away, your own consultant, who's Mr. Marchand, has indicated that there's no basis for the Board of Appeals to turn down this 40B. Okay, that's a given right now. Okay, so what we're all talking about today is, do we provide you some insurance going forward, which we otherwise can't be made to do, that you'll stay the 10%, and as your administrator says, contractually, not subject to some HAC appeal, et cetera. And the second part is, do we provide certain mitigation money, okay, to the town? That's it. You know, everyone has negotiated very diligently, precisely. We've been doing this for, I think, September, or maybe even earlier. And so I would suggest that this agreement, you know, is not an agreement that is one-sided. I would say it's, if anything, shaded to the benefit of the town, but we're willing to go along with it. Okay? Last thing, it was a mention about this $100,000 payment. That payment is due almost immediately. It's due within 30 days of the final approval of the subdivision. And it was town council, and I don't disagree with them, who wanted that to be part of this agreement as opposed to a separate agreement with the planning board. He wanted everything, you know, that wasn't our idea, but it was a correct idea. And, you know, we don't have any objection to that. So, you know, in terms of, and again, these easement lots, I don't want to say it anymore. It's subject to town meeting vote. If town meeting doesn't vote it, there'll never be any easement lots, okay? And, you know, we have negative pull at town meeting, okay? Let's be honest, okay? And you will not see us at town meeting. David Hale will not be getting up at the rostrum, all right?
Thank you. And that's a 2/3 majority vote, correct? At town meeting?
Yeah, for the easement. Yeah, it's a 2/3.
Hang on, Don.
Sort of a legal question. Do we have to enact this agreement? I don't want to say you have to, but the way this is shaped, is it necessary for us to enact this agreement before the ZBA makes their ruling?
I think, I don't know if I would say necessary, but I think they're waiting to know what you're going to do.
The way the ZBA's draft decision is written right now, it envisions that it can reference this document. If there is no, and they're making their decision on Thursday night, if there is no document to reference, I presume they'll have to alter their decision to either say what needs to be said from here, over there, but we've tried to keep those provisions that ought not to get appealed to the Housing Appeals Committee in this agreement and not put them in the ZBA decision.
And it's for equal force with the planning board money. We don't want to put that requirement in the planning board decision and leave it subject to appeal.
All right, Don.
Yeah.
I'll get you.
Just one quick clarification on the planning board and 48 process, which is a completely separate process. We were advised by town council we had no say on the connections to the 40B, but the zoning officer has sent out his memo. He disagrees with it. And in the 40A, it's an open space permit, and the planning board is the authority that decides upon that. And the $100,000 was in that, or is going to be into that. There was consensus about it. There will be a meeting on the 14th. Same time as ZBA has a meeting, and the 100,000 is there, and it was just that be in cash and up front, and sort of surprised it's still in there. And just finally, the comment on friendly 40B, there's a lot of morphing of definitions. Throughout the state, there is a very good planner by the name of Susan Moses, who's gone around and taught, as the Mass Municipal Association, you have courses, planning boards would have it, and her advice was a little bit what Alex had suggested is, what if the town decided, it's time to build some affordable housing, let's do a 40B. But it's much like a master planning process where the town takes initiative. And then much like the sewer committee that you heard earlier today, that they do a request for qualifications, then they have someone subcontracted to them. It's the town that directs all that. That's a friendly 40B. When it's a private developer that says, we can build 200 units, and gee whiz, we have to build 200 units, that is not considered a friendly 40B.
Thanks for your point.
Chairman, can I correct that?
No, low.
Jerry, you brought up some excellent points, Greg, and that is, we've got to make the best of what we've got. If we can't block the connection between the 40A and the 40B, and it sounds like the ZBA could take care of that with a stroke of could settle that issue with the stroke of a pen, then by not signing this, by saying, we're going to fight it all step of the way, Mark will be happy because it'll create plenty of billable hours, the town gets nothing. You know, it may be do the best with what you've got, even though I think most of us here, and I feel for many of the board members, that it's not what the town wants, but it looks like the state, and particularly the hack, appropriately named, can just run roughshod all over us, so.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks. Mr. Avella.
Thank you. 94 Grist Mill, direct abutter to the 40B. And before I go any further, I'm a school committee member, and thus a public employee by the law, and then also the conflict of interest law kicks in. So under advice of the State Ethics Commission, I can only speak for myself. To be perfectly clear, this is not school committee speaking, or even speaking for my wife, just PJ speaking to you right now. The humor aside, seriously, I became involved in this just about day one. The first neighborhood meeting, in fact, occurred in my basement. No one's like this. That's clear to everybody here. I've not spoken to anybody that says they do like it. Okay, call it a bad situation at best. So how do we deal with a bad situation? Now, as a resident of the community, we all work together to do the best we could with the developer, and we feel we've achieved, at least I feel, that we've achieved the best that was possible at the time. Now what I'm asking you all is, what's the best possible that you, as our representatives here in the town, can do for us as a community? So as a resident of the community, I'm looking to you for that. Some sort of agreement is necessary. We can argue the merits of any particular component of this agreement, but certainly an agreement is necessary. So as far as an HCA is concerned, from my perspective, we need one. We need something. Mitigation, it's been also labeled a bribe. We can look at it from every side we're looking at as to how we want to categorize it. The bottom line is, something is going to happen inside of our town. It's going to be of some size, significant size that we weren't prepared for. Nearly everybody I spoke to in my neighborhood certainly saw that next lot that was empty as a buildable unit that a house was going to go on. And certainly in my own personal backyard, that's what I anticipated, a house similar to what we had on the grist mill already. That's not going to happen back there. It's the 40B. It's the law, and we're all in compliance with that. Again, we don't like it. We feel we made, as a community, or excuse me, as a neighborhood, my personal opinion on it is we did the best we possibly could with the developer in that regard. Now I'm asking you all to do the best you possibly can as we go forward with the host community agreement. So, thanks.
All right, David, you have a question?
Yeah. So I just want to be clear that there are no easement lots until you sign this agreement, if you sign this agreement, and until the easements are approved at town meeting. But if you go forward with this agreement, we will meet with each one of the butters to the easement lot, and we'll work out a landscape plan that includes a financial commitment, whether it's 3,000 or 5,000 or whatever is required to make those lots, the houses that are built there in the landscape plan similar to or better than whatever landscaping is between the houses that are there now, we're committed to do that. And we will meet with each and every abutter.
Got that on record and on tape.
Everything's on
Mark the
tape.
tape.
Thanks, David. All right, Jane, one more and we'll wrap it up.
Okay, Jane Crisfield, Mill Lane. I think the horses really left the barn here, and it's because of the comprehensive permit, the way it's written. The ZBA is going to approve the connection between the 40A and the 40B. They had a choice. They did not and do not have to approve that connection. They can only do it by a variance. And I think town council and our housing agent made that clear. That by our, if you apply just our regular zoning and our zoning bylaws, there would be no connection. The only way you can make the connection is to allow a variance. So that's the whole key to this. Now, since they're going to do that, maybe that's why we have an HCA, to protect us from the Housing Appeals Court. I don't know. That seems to be a connection. But I think it's very unfortunate that we didn't get in on this process earlier as citizens and realize what was going on. Because I think this is a very unfortunate problem that we're now dealing with.
I'm ready for a motion.
Does Roland want to respond?
I don't know.
Roland, do you want to make a comment?
A couple people have been trying to put words in your mouth, so I just, I have stated things that you allegedly stated. I didn't know if you wanted to restate anything. You don't have to, I just.
Well, I've heard a couple of comments this evening, and I've heard them before, that I was opposed to the connection of lots outside the 40B. As the project evolved, I recognized that it was the intent of the developer to include some lots outside the 40B special permit. With that said, my intent was to clarify which lots, clearly identify which lots were going to be included in the wastewater treatment plant, identify it in the special permit language. If it was not in the language, excuse me, I would not be able to issue permits for lots outside the 40B. And that was my only intent, was to clarify that. The Board of Appeals heard me. They wrote the specific language in their waivers, and now I have what I need to exercise my job and to allow those lots which were intended to be tied to the wastewater treatment. Without that language, I couldn't, I felt as though that the 40B was structured as to just for the 40B. Does that clarify that a little
Well,
bit?
I just wanted to make sure you were on the record,
I'm not
because people have been
opposed
trying to
this
say
at all.
something. What's that? Yeah.
I'm simply trying to make my job easier at a later date.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Roland. Comment before we go to. You want to make a comment? Yeah, go ahead.
First off, I want to thank everybody for all their input. And believe it or not, I have not, I'm not sure I have yet come to a decision about how I'm going to vote. But all this input has been very valuable. We've gone through a lot of this. We are making a huge decision for this town, and we're establishing a huge precedent for this town in doing this. So it's a tremendous decision, and you know, I think Paul Avella put it the best possible way it could be put. And that is, we have to, up here, we have to try to do what is in the best interest of the town. And it would really be nice if we didn't have to face this issue, but unfortunately, we're going to have to face this issue. And that's what we have to do, is try to do what's in the best interest of the town, given the horse is out the gate. And so the purpose of this is just to say I really appreciate this, and it's not an easy decision for me to come to. You know, I haven't come to a comfort level with it. Never will have, no matter which way it goes. I probably won't have a comfort level with it. But I appreciate everybody taking the time, and the fact that calmer heads prevailed tonight and we could have a good discussion.
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman?
Any other comments for the rest of the board?
Ready to go here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd like to just echo what Alice has to say. And I think the biggest thing here, and PJ, you alluded to it, is looking out for the town as a whole. And in this situation, what resonates to me is the town being able to get out of the 40B business for another 17 years. Not about the money, I think it's about the 40B business. And this project with this HCA, if the rest of the stuff gets approved at town meeting and by the ZBA and the planning board, then we're out of the 40B business and we're done with it. So I think we've done the best that we can do here with this, even though I don't agree with the 40B project as a whole, because I don't particularly care for 40Bs. So with that, that's all I got to say. Go ahead.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to execute the host community agreement with 15 Great Road LLC and various owners of the property at 15 Great Road Littleton, the developer, which provides mitigation payments to the town by the developer relative to the proposed developments at 15 Great Road, including comprehensive permit application for the Village Green Apartments pending before the Zoning Board of Appeals under Mass General Law, Chapter 40B, and the proposed Orchard subdivision pending before the Planning Board under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, in which this agreement provides assurance that the town's subsidized housing inventory will remain 10% through the 2030 census update in 2031. In the event that some of the 15 Great Roads rental units are subsequently converted to ownership, said agreement to be subject to the approval as to form by town council.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
All right, before we sign, I know there's been some revisions that have gone around.
We got the final.
I want to make sure that you.
That's not HCA.
Yeah, this isn't the HCA. I want to make sure that you review it and it meets everything that was discussed, so that we're signing the right.
Yeah, so why don't we do this? Why don't you sign it, and I'll take it with me, and we'll give it a final run through tomorrow.
And what happens if there's an issue?
Because we agreed it, I trust them, they sent in the final version, but given your words, I'll hold it, I'll read it, I'll report back.
It's not a contract, you give it back to them.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
You want them to sign it? Right?
I would like
Yeah,
to sign it.
okay, do we have it? What did you expect?
Mr. Hale.
David has the signed contract, we'll sign.
You got the signed contract?
Yeah, we'll sign that, and then Tom will, yes, right, yeah, and we always first. Fine, so somebody's happening on their way to the registry. Actually, it's happening across the street from
Tonight was very good.
Oh, this is
Very good.
I didn't think that, you know, we just let them talk. Well, we got, I feel good, we got all of our other business. You know, you know what, it's funny.
Why don't you just bite his finger off?
As I said, you know, we adjourn? Oh, no. Motion to adjourn?
We gotta sign the documents.
You can sign that outside, we can sign outside.
We can sign outside?
Outside.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.